is being started.
Yeah. So good morning, Eraj. How are you?
Yes, good morning, Minaj. Hello. Yeah, Manoj,
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yeah, Eraj.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good
yeah. I'm
morning.
able to hear you.
Yeah, how are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. What about you?
I'm good, Manoj. Thank you. Okay, I think most of them already have been joined. So, still few more are there. So, anyways, like we'll start the sessions to maintain the timing. So, sorry guys, like there'll be like initially for the initial sessions, like 1 or 2 sessions, there might be 4 to 5 minutes delay, but we'll try to maintain the timings from next sessions onwards because the participants will be joining slowly for the first or second session. Okay. uh all right then, Manoj, I think most of the participants already been joined, so we can start it.
Yeah,
So guys, as
yeah,
I told you like last time, every one of you will be on mute state. Okay, I really request every one of you to be attentive. If you guys are having any queries, you can ping me separately in the chat window, and in between we are going to unmute you to take up your queries. Thank you guys. Thank you, Manoj. Over to you.
yeah. Thanks, Eraj. So let's start our session for today. Yeah. Thanks, Eraj, for starting the recording. Yeah. So guys, today we are going to have a look at the first module. So as we said, there are different solutions. Like there are only two solutions over there, that is upstream and downstream in Ariba. But within these solutions, there are different modules. Now, as we said, S2P currently, if you look at any big project or any mid-level project, you are going to see S2P process implementation over there only. So first of all, as we said, what's the beginning or what's the origin point of S2P? So basically, the origin point of H2P is supplier onboarding, right? So if you cannot onboard a new supplier into your procurement system, you cannot do any process. Why? Because first of all, there are two aspects over here. See, first of all, is like any new supplier who is coming, they have to register in your system. That's the first thing. And the second thing is like they need to be qualified also. Okay. Second question is like, what about the pre-existing supplier? So guys, that is generally part of your data loads. Data loads is a separate part within integration. So that part we will see within the integration. And integration is the most complex thing in your whole of implementation. Why? Because most people think that integration is actually configuration. We will see configuration and it will be done. No, it cannot be done like that, guys. Why? Because from my 7.5 years of experience in SAP Ariba only, forget about the SAP SRM and SAP MM experience. From Ariba experience only, I can tell you over here that whenever you are integrating any two systems, you should know what is the scenario, because actually you have to build a scenario only, right? So once you build up the scenario across the different systems, then only what will happen, then only you can go and do the configuration. So that is why integration is the last thing which we do in our training. Why? Because it's the most complex, it's the scenario building process. But from generally at the starting of the training, what we do, we'll look at each modules of the different processes over there. First of all, we cover the process flow. Now, before just going into the SLP part over here, guys, let me just tell a few things. Why? Because ultimately this will be asked by the participants only. So first of all, we should know the process flow. That is the most important thing. Second thing is configuration. Why? Because ultimately configuration is dependent on the process flow. Why? Because if you look at the need for configuration, what we do in the configuration, basically we customize the business flow. So many participants generally ask us, Manoj, why not configuration and then the process flow? Then I will say, first of all, when you are going to work in a project, what is the first thing which you're going to do? You're going to receive the SOW, that means the scope of work from the client, like 50 line item, 100 line item. These are the different line items which are project deliverables. You have to do those things. First of all, you should understand which of the project deliverables can be delivered through the standard process. Which of them are requiring customization? Which of them are requiring configuration? How you can understand that? When you will know the process flow. So you will see in our sessions, the first session will always be a process flow session. The second session will be the configuration session. Why? Because each of them are complementing each other. So please don't think like, why we are showing the process flow, what their process flow is of no importance. No, it is of utmost importance in any project if you want to work. Iraj, am I audible to you? Guys, am I audible to all of you? Yeah, thanks guys for the confirmation. Yeah, thanks. So that's the thing. So basically what I'm saying over here is like, guys, basically what I am saying over here is like, this is not a theoretical training, this is a practical training. And as we told you before, once you complete the training, you should be confident enough to go and start work in a project. That is what our goal is. So that is what we are trying to do over here. So I think enough of the methodology and all those stuff which we want to speak about, we have spoken. So before we go into the SLP, we should understand what is SLP. So basically SLP stands for Supplier Lifecycle and Performance Management. What does this particular module do? Before that, give me a moment. Let me open up a notepad. Why? Because for all of you, it would be easier if you have a look at this particular document. And guys, don't think this document won't be shared with you, because this document will be shared across all the documents as shown by Eraj in our previous demo session. Yeah. So guys, are you able to see my screen? Yeah. Thanks for the confirmation, guys. Yeah. Thanks very much. So first of all, SLP is the module for onboarding any supplier into your
Manoj, can you hear me? Hello. Just a second, guys. Manoj, are you there?
Eraj, are you able to hear me?
Yes, now can hear you, Manoj.
Yeah, actually, I think there was some problem with my earphone.
Yeah,
So
now
that is
it's
why
fine.
there was some issue. Now it is coming fine, right?
Yes, yes, it is coming fine now. Hopefully, it works
Yeah,
now. Yeah,
yeah,
thank you.
yeah. It will work. Actually,
Uh-huh.
sometimes what will happen is like sometimes my hand will get, tangled with the wire. So the
Uh-huh.
wire will have a loose connection.
Okay, okay, no problem, Manoj. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you. Thank you, Raj. Yeah. So, guys, so basically, as I said, SLP is used to onboard your supplier in Ariba. Now, before we go charging towards the SLP and see something in the screen, let me tell you that whenever you will go for implementation, you will have a talk with the different SPOC. SPOC generally stands for single point of contact. So Ariba implementation will also have a single point of contact from Ariba, from the customer side or from the client side. Okay, so you will be taking all the requirement from that particular person only. So when you will be having a talk with him, you should understand that before you implement some process within any software, you have to understand the preceding process and the succeeding process. Now here, since SLP is the beginning point, what it is, it's the beginning point in your Ariba implementation. So you have to understand the preceding process will always be a manual process. So you have to understand what is that particular process. Then only you can understand SLP. Otherwise, what will happen is like you can only implement SLP. But what will happen is like when you will get a proper requirement, client will ask you a question over there. You won't be able to, tell how the process will be configured, how the process will be designed. So there is a two different thing, that is working in any project, that is configuring, and the second thing is designing the process. So both of these things we try to cover in our training. So let us understand what is the preceding process. So first of all, as a uh, consultant, he will go and have a talk with the SPOC. Now SPOC will generally say, in any big project, take for example, Accenture is your client. Accenture wants to implement SAP Ariba. So they want to onboard the supplier through SAP Ariba through SLP. What is the step? So first of all, you have to put some advertisement, right? Advertisement to let the supplier know that, hey, as a client, I am Accenture. I want the different services of different suppliers. Okay. So please register in our Ariba system. So where this particular advertisement will be put? Previously, I can tell you the example of this thing, guys. So in SRM and MM, generally, this thing will come in the newspaper. Okay, sometimes in SMS, or sometimes in what you can say, web pages. But here in Ariba, it is strictly mentioned over there in the normal best process, base base enterprise processes over there, that client will have their own corporate URL. In this case, www.accenture.com. So there, if you go and check, you will see a vendor section or for supplier section. Once you click on this part, so here you have to put all this information about your suppliers, which team will be responding to this thing, what is the URL, and all the other things. So that is how generally in big implementation project, supplier will know, okay, I have got a chance. Why? Because as a supplier, you will be always going to the corporate portal and checking over there. So that's the first thing. What's the second thing? Second thing is like what information you will put, because client will ask you this thing. They will come to me and say, Manoj, okay, this is the process. We totally understood, and it's a very good thing. But what detail we will put over there? Excuse me. So guys, most probably people will say, hey, just put the Ariba URL. No, you cannot do it like this. You have to provide brief instructions to the suppliers. So basically, you have to ask the suppliers what are the different data which is required in doing this or starting this SLP process. Basically, contact person name, first name, last name, email ID, okay, address, country, all of these, at least these are the basic things, right, which are required. So you will prepare a list of all those mandatory parameters or mandatory fields, okay, and then you have to step by step write the instructions. Like first thing is like log into Ariba URL, okay, or basically you can say like this, since SLP request process, this is not a process where supplier generally log in into Ariba URL. Here generally buyers log into it. So the first step you have to write it like, please give this following mandatory information. And there you have to list down the different information fields like first name, last name, email ID, address, country, all of those things, right? Once you take all this particular thing, what next? What next? So basically, what next is like, you are going to have a email ID. Now, the question is like, Manoj, why email ID? Why email ID is required? Basically, supplier will send all this information to where? Because supplier in the first process of your SLP won't have the login IDs. Their user ID is not created. So what you have to be done? So what is need to be done? So there you have to provide a email ID. What is that email ID, or whose email ID will provide? So basically, you should understand, in a very big project, you will see generally people will be divided their work will be divided. So there will be small group of buyers who will be working as a supplier enablement team members. They will have a group email ID. That particular email ID will be listed out over there. And what the third step? Send all this detail into this email ID, and we will trigger the process for your onboarding in our Ariba system. These are the different instructions, and these are the different information which you should give to the supplier. If you don't give it, supplier onboarding cannot start. Okay, so this is the basically preceding process for SLP, which you should keep in mind. That's the first thing. Second thing, okay, very good, Manoj. This is the process. But what are the different processes in SLP? Yes, now we can come into SLP. Why? Because we have known the preceding process. So now the process is like, there will be three processes, basically sub processes within SLP. What are those things? Supplier request, supplier registration, supplier qualification. Now, what is a supplier request? And here, guys, always remember, all of these three things are in sequence. You cannot say I will do the supplier qualification, then I will do supplier request, then I will do supplier registration. No, it has to be in sequence. Supplier request first, then supplier registration, then supplier qualification. And on the first day of my training, I don't want to go into too much complex things, but in tomorrow's session you will see whatever I have said today, it is becoming a little bit complex, but one step at a time, so that everybody can understand. So for today, just think of it: supplier request, then supplier registration, then supplier qualification. Okay, this is the sequence which we are going to follow, and SAP Ariba as well as SLP won't let you change this sequence, and you cannot change this thing. Okay, so what is a supplier request process? So basically, when I'm talking about supplier request process, it's an internal process. What's an internal process? Or with respect to whom? So here we have written buying organization. What does buying organization means? Basically nothing but your client. In this case, who is the client? Accenture. So if we are implementing Ariba for Accenture, the buying organization will be Accenture only. Okay. Why I use this particular term? Why? Because generally, when we as a consultant, we as a solution consultant, as a uh, senior consultant, we will be talking with each other in this client phase. But you cannot say like in front of the client that you are the client like this. Basically, what we say, we use some technical terms. So this is basically the technical term, that is buying organization. This is another pseudonym for client, nothing else. Okay. So what next? Excuse me. So basically, the next is like, it's an internal process where mostly, not mostly, full of the work will be done by the buyers. Now, guys, I think all of you know what is a buyer and who is a buyer and who is a supplier, right? It was covered in our demo overview session. Can you please confirm, guys? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Correct, guys. Correct. Totally correct. Yes. So basically, remember just only the two differences you should remember. Anyways, buyer means internal employee of the client, or in other hand, or in other words, you can say internal employee of the buying organization. Okay, remember this thing: internal employee of the buying organization. That's the first thing. Second thing is, who is the supplier? Supplier generally are not the internal employees; they're the external users who deliver goods and services to whom? To the client, or in other hand, buying organization. Okay, that's the thing. And remember, buyer will be using Ariba spend management for their login, and supplier will be using Ariba network for their logins. Okay, two different URL for two different kind of user. Okay, now what next? So why it is an internal process? Why? To we should generally communicate with the different users, because people, participants who are generally coming from SRM and MM over here into Ariba, they will be telling us that, Manoj, why it is like this? Generally in SRM, we will start with the ROS, registration of supplier process, directly. There we will be, supplier will be filling up the form, and generally buyer will be looking into this. But why it is not like this over here? Because, guys, Ariba prefers to have lot of security in their mind. So whenever they will design a solution, they will make sure that everything is secure. So that is why it is not as like that of SRM. So first of all, what will happen? Supplier will go into the portal. They will check all this thing. They will draw up a mail, send all this mandated information to whom? To the supply enablement team. Now, who's the supply enablement team? Here, generally remember, supply enablement team is nothing but the buyer, right? A small group of buyer. Now, this buyer will do what? They will click on the supply request form, and they will fill up the form, and they will submit the form. But the question arises, why? Because I think all of you can that whenever a supplier is getting onboarded into your system, some high level authority has to give a authorization. And who is the supply enablement team, or the supply enablement team? Generally, they are the freshers, guys. They are basically the end user, not even the senior end user. They are the junior end user, so they cannot take any decision. And if we give the supplier manager email ID, supplier manager is basically a very busy person. They will say, hey, what kind of email is coming over here? I am receiving 100 emails, 200 emails in a day. So generally, we give all this information to where? To the supplier enablement team. Okay, that's the first thing. And the second thing is like, what next? What next over here? So basically, once this come on the supply enablement team members, supply enablement team member will fill up the form and submit it. Then it will go for approval. To whom? To the supplier manager. Okay. So what is a supplier manager? I think most of you can recognize this. Supplier manager is a role. I think most of you guys do understand the concept of role, right? Can you please confirm, guys? Guys, are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Manoj. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for the confirmation, guys. Yeah. So basically, remember, if you look at the technical words, what is the technical name for roles over here in SAP Ariba? It is nothing but group. Keep in mind, guys. So if I say group in Ariba, don't you know you know think like what Manoj is saying. Hey, group, what is this? Basically, group is nothing but role. Okay. So basically, supplier manager is nothing but a role. But how we denote it in SAP Ariba? We denote it with this particular role. So remember, for each of this process, you will have a separate role as a approver, supply request manager. Now the next question, I think most of you participant will be asking me is like, Manoj, that means you are saying only one level of approval. Only this particular guy who is having this role will approve it. And I will say, guys, remember, this is the best practice thing. So this is the standard process. But as a part of your customizations and all those stuff, you can change this approval. So we are also going to see the approval processes in the templates. But for the time being, remember, this is the best practices which we follow. Okay. So basically, supply request manager is what? It's a role. It's a mandatory role for supply request approval. Now, once the approval is done over here, what next? What next? Basically, you will see once the approval has been done, the supplier 360-degree profile will get created. Very good. In SLP, you'd be able to see the supplier's full profile over there. But remember, guys, the only limitation of this process is like the supplier has been onboarded. Okay. But the supplier is not authorized to take part in any transactions. Why? Because of Ariba's architecture. What Ariba says is like buyer will be logging into Ariba's system, that is Ariba spend management. Supplier will be logging in where? Supplier will be logging into Ariba network. They need to create their user ID and password in Ariba network. But in supply request, Ariba network did not came in this whole process. So that is why remember, if you have completed fully the supply request process, it does not mean that this supplier can directly take part in the sourcing and contracting and all the other processes. Okay. Only their profile will get created. So that is why we have the supplier registration process, supplier qualification process. Okay. So I think enough of the lecture and all those stuff. But this, remember this thing, guys. These things are quite important. Why? Because even if you read the books, even if you ask anybody, nobody would be able to share this information. Why? Because you can only gain this information while working in a implementation project. Okay. So remember these things which I'm saying over here, this will all make sense when you will go into Ariba project and you will see the similarities over there. Okay. So let us go into the system, guys. So what this particular login is called, guys, or which user will be using this login? Correct. Correct, guys. So basically, this is the buyer login. You're totally correct over here. Yeah. Yeah, guys, I will request to everybody that whatever queries you're having, please just write it down in a notebook or, a notepad. Okay. Once we complete one of the processes, in between, we are going to have a question answer session. There we will take all of your questions and we will answer them. Okay. So remember this thing, guys. Okay. Why? Because see, Our methodology is the best methodology. Why? Because we have been training for the last 2 years over here. And the second thing is like it is giving result. So generally what we do is like we cover the content first, then we go for a question answer session. And now if all of you are having too much question answer session, so we are going to extend our time. Okay, so that's what we do. So don't expect that every time at 10:30 a.m. we are going to end our session. Sometimes it will stretch beyond that also. Okay, so I will request, unnecessary request all of you, please write down your queries in the notepad. Okay, we are going to have question answer sessions. At that time, please do ask. Yeah, thank you guys. Yeah, welcome guys. Now, what's the next thing? So basically, all of you are correct. This is nothing but the buyer login. Okay, so where we will go and create the supply request. Remember this thing, guys. In Ariba, whenever you will do anything, you have to click on this create button. So click on this create button. And then if you scroll down, you will be seeing one thing which is called as supplier request over here. Once you click on the create, a lot of option is going to come. So there you will find a supplier request. Click on this one. Give me a moment. I think there was a automatically log off over there due to I think inactivity. So generally remember this thing that whenever you will work in any SAP Ariba system, remember if you don't do any activity within SAP Ariba for 10 to 15 minutes, it will automatically log off. Keep that thing in mind, guys. I think guys, now you can see my screen. Can you please confirm? Yeah, thanks for the confirmation, guys. Click on create, click on supplier request. Once you click on the supplier request, a form will come. Yeah, now you can see this particular form. Within this particular form, guys, you can see one thing over here, that some of the fields are having a red asterisk mark. What do we mean by these things? Basically, it's a mandatory field. Yeah, correct, guys. So always remember this thing, guys, that these are mandatory things. Remember about this thing. So if this is not field, what will happen? Generally, system will not let you proceed ahead. That's the only thing. Okay. So remember, optional field you follow or not, it does not matter. But mandatory field, it has to be entered. So only this field name, that is supplier name, contact first name, contact last name, contact email, okay, VAT ID, okay, all these things, and the supplier type. Okay, these things are the things which you are going to write where? Within on the corporate client's corporate URL. That means when you are giving this instruction to the supplier, you have to give and say these are the field names which are mandatorily required. So if you are sending an email without this particular field value, you are sending basically a what you can say uh, 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 what you can say uh, invalid request. We cannot work on that. We have to reject it. Okay, so let us try to create a supplier over here, at least complete the supplier request process over here. So I will give this thing test, or basically I will get okay, just a moment. First name is supplier. Okay. Last name is ANZ. And here I'm going to give a and VAT I will just write anything. Say digit character. Okay. And I am going to select as third party vendor. Okay, and I will not fill the other information, guys. Why? Because these are optionals. So optional things, you don't need to put all of this thing over here. Okay, so click on submit. Once you click on submit, what you will see is like your supply request have been submitted for processing. Processing means what? Basically, the process has been started. That means the approval has been started over here. Now, very good. You have created a process. Okay, what next? Generally, what are you going to do next? Because where you are going to see it. So always remember, in SAP Ariba, each and everything is having a different tabs for checking this thing. So remember, the tab for SLP is supplier management. It is coming over here. I think, guys, all of you can see, right? I am moving my cursor over there. See at the top left hand side, just after home, catalog, and supplier management, there it is. Now, generally, eh, some participant will say, hey Manoj, when we have logged in, we are not able to see the supply management, where we will see it. So remember this thing, guys, a lot of information will be over here. Why? Because there will be a lot of submodules and modules in SAP Ariba. So Ariba cannot say that I will give you all this particular thing over here. So the three most recent tab or the four most recent tabs will be coming over here. And remember, this is not hard coded. This will change based on your preference. So if you click on say more and you click on sourcing, what will happen is like, see, sourcing is coming right now over here. Sourcing was not coming previously. And if I click on procurement, then you will see supply management has gone out. So if you are logging into SAP system and saying, hey Manoj, where is the SLP? Don't get confused. Click on more, and then you can see the supply management over here at the end. Then you click on supply management, then automatically the tab will come and system will refresh and it will be showing you what it will be showing you the SLP processes. So first of all, as you can see, there are three things which is being shown over here: supply request, registration, and qualification. So remember this thing, guys. So as we said, different suppliers will have different statuses. So in SLP, status is based on the process. So if some supplier is currently going on to the supply request process, they will be loaded under the supplier request. But when you will click on registration, you will see only those supplier whose registration process has been started or it has been completed, it will be showing over there. Qualification, same thing. Be able to see only those supplier whose qualification has been started or it has been completed successfully will be showing under this tab. So always remember, if it is coming like this also and you're doing the supply request, please go back to your supply request. Otherwise, you will not find your supplier. Okay. Next is the supplier ANZ, which we generally have created. Now I will click on this view. Okay. Once I click on this view, see the supplier profile has not been created. Many people think, hey Manoj, what you have told, supply profile has not been created. So actually, this is not supply profile. This is the approval process, guys. So always remember, in Ariba, basically, as I said, the difference between upstream and downstream. In upstream, any transactions for which the approval is there, definitely for all approval, you will receive a notification, you will receive a link. But once you click on the link, then Ariba will take you to its login. You have to give the user ID password. Once you have given the user ID password, what you have to do? You have to you will get this particular page. So here you have to do the approval. Okay, so remember this is the process over here in upstream. Downstream, it's a separate process altogether. Why? Because he will be getting a notification, and there he will have a link. But if you click the link, the transaction will not open. Why? Because you have to do the approval in my to do section, not over here. Okay, so that's the difference between upstream and downstream approval over here. Now we will click on approve. Once I click on approve over there, this is the optional comment which is coming. So generally, just for our demo purposes, what we will write is like, we'll write the supplier request process approved, and I will click on confirm approval. Okay, and after few time you will see one thing, supplier profile is automatically showing over here. Now remember this thing, guys, this is the supplier 360-degree profile which I was talking about. So remember, many participants will be in doubts. They will be saying, Manoj, that is the supplier 360-degree profile view. No, that is not the supplier 360-degree profile view. This is the supplier 360-degree profile view. And as per the name, 360 means what? All the information should be showing over there. You can see all the information has been started. Okay. And you can see a few information which is coming. You can see only the request has been completed. If you look at the top right hand side where I have highlighted the registration status and qualification status, system is saying for this supplier, the process has not even begun. Why? Because you have just completed the supply request process. And how? Right now in this particular process, once you have completed the supply request process, how Ariba will understand this is a unique supplier through this particular ID, which we generally call this as ASIM vendor ID. Okay, and the top right hand side you can see over here, guys. Top right hand side I have highlighted it. This is generally the unique ID which is used to identify a unique supplier in SLP. But remember, only till supplier request process, because after you complete the supplier registration process, along with this number another number will come, and that is of tremendous importance, not only for SLP, not only for upstream, but also for your downstream as well as for your integration too. Okay, so as of now we have completed the supplier request process. Ariba is saying S11716836. This is the unique ID for supplier ANZ. Okay, it has been, its request has been created, its profile has been created. But if you try to onboard this particular supplier, or if you want to include this supplier in your sourcing and contracting, you will not find this supplier name in your supplier list. Why? Because this is the difference between SAP Ariba and SAP SRM or SAP ECC. Why? Because you don't have to do manual processing over here. Ariba will do all the processing over here. That means Ariba will say, if its status is not registered, then it cannot take part in any sourcing and contracting process. Okay, so this is the first sub process of SLP. Remember over here, guys. Okay, so Iraj, I think let's have a question answer session. Okay, why? Because we have completed
Yes, Manoj.
the content, first sub process content over here.
Yes, Manoj. Yeah, yeah, sure. Can you hear me, Manoj?
Yeah,
Okay.
Iraj, I'm able to hear you.
All right. So, guys, please raise your hand. So, those who are having any queries, so we are going to unmute everyone. So, please raise your hand so that it would be easier for us to take up the question answer sessions. So, I'll start with alphabetical order. Yeah. One second. I just Amal. Amal, can you just go ahead, please?
Hi, guys, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, Amal, hear you.
Yeah, so I can see that the registration starts from the buyer side.
No, this is actually not registration, Amal. Basically, the registration will come in the next step. Basically, here what we did, we just inform our client, basically our supplier manager, that we are beginning the process of registering of this supplier, right? But before the
Yeah.
registration, as a part of best practices, Ariba will say, complete the request process. It's an internal thing. So basically, all the information has, let's say I'm a junior uh, Ariba end user. This information has came from the supplier. Okay, so I cannot take a decision. The decision has to be taken by a supplier manager, right? Basically, the supplier
Yeah.
request manager.
Yeah.
So that guy will take the decision. Okay, you can start onboarding the supplier. So basically, this is just its approval. For the purpose of approval, we are doing the supply request process. Registration process will start in our next process. Just after this question answer session, we are going to see the registration process. And yes,
Okay.
you are also correct on that particular part, that registration will also be triggered as well as done with the help of buyer. But supplier will also collaborate on that part also.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think your query was like, I understood your query. Why? Because I think you're asking this from the SRM point of view, right? ROS.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So basically, that's the difference. So in SRM ROS, what will happen is like a link will be available in the directly the portal, right? So that
Correct.
portal will be directly available. So what will supply do? Supply will just log into the portal. They will click on the link, and there they will fill up the data, and then the ROS process will start. Okay, but here the process is generally a little bit different. Why? Because over there you don't have any control which supplier will come and start the registration process, right?
Yeah.
But here in SAP Ariba, as I said, SAP Ariba views security in a best way. So SAP Ariba is saying that only your junior member, that means as a client's employee, can determine which supplier can join, which supplier cannot join. Forget about registration. Registration is the next step. In the joining purpose only, whether the supplier will be, onboarded or whether it won't be onboarded. That's a question which will be given to the supply request manager. And if supply request manager say yes, if they will be onboarded, then you can begin ahead with the registration process. Why? Because you have completed the supply request process over there. But if your supply request manager is saying, hey, I think this guy or this particular supplier is a blacklisted supplier or is a fraudulent supplier, so what will happen? So that particular supply manager will say, no, I don't want to, bring this particular supplier into my database only. So what will happen? It will be rejected, and forget about registration. It won't be onboarded into your Ariba system. So that is why supply request manager process, supply request process over here basically is initiated by the buyer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is supplier request, is it mandatory to create a supplier?
Basically, what will happen is like once you have completed the supplier registration process, at that particular point, your supplier will be automatically created. Why?
Okay.
Because if you understand the concept of supplier creation in Ariba, when a supplier ANID gets generated, that is Ariba network ID, at that time only, basically you have created the supplier.
Yeah.
Okay, so once you do complete the registration process, then the supplier's ANID will get created, and immediately that means supplier ID also has been generated. Now the supplier has been created, and you can use it in the different transactions.
Okay. What if the supplier is already in the Ariba network? He's not dealing with myself, but some
Yeah,
other company.
yeah, definitely. It can happen over there. So when we will go to the supply registration process, just after this particular question answer session, you will see there will be two options over there. So Ariba will be saying to you that if you don't have an account in the Ariba network, you need to sign up. If you
Oh,
already
okay.
have an account, then you have to log in with that particular user ID and password in Ariba network.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. I'm done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Amal.
Yeah. Diksha?
Yeah, hi, good morning. Am I audible?
Yes, good morning, Diksha. You are audible.
Yeah. Hi, Manoj. My
Yeah,
first question is that whatever you showed right now, that creating
yeah,
the supplier request form and approving it, it is from the buyer point of view, the end user point of view, right?
yeah.
So as a Ariba consultant, this is not we would be doing. We would be conferring the,
Yeah, correct,
yeah, that,
Diksha.
oh,
So
got
let
it.
let me answer on this part. Why? Because when I began this session, I told like,
Hmm.
see, as a functional consultant, what is our first work? We will not directly go and start configuring in the system. We will get the different requirement from our client. So
Hmm.
basically, the first thing is like you need to determine which of this requirement can be done through standard processes, which of them has to be configured so that those particular features, functional features are available within the system. And the third one is those things which has to be customized. Okay. So when you can distinguish between these three processes, when you know the process flow over there, if you are having complete what you can say complete picture of the process in your mind, then you can easily start with this thing. So remember, as a part of Ariba functional consultant, first you will get the requirement, then you have to prepare the as and to be, right?
Yeah, okay,
Once you
got it.
prepare the to be, there you have to prepare a gap document. In the gap document you have to write this particular requirement is already available in the standard process. When you can write it, because if you are having a good understanding of the process flow, then you can write it. Then once the BVP is prepared, BVP is signed, then only you will begin with the different customizations, data collections and all those stuff, right? So remember, configuration will always come after 2 or 3 months when the project will start. But in between these 2 3 months, you need to determine which of the process is how
Needs
or
change.
how to be
Yeah,
handled over there. Yeah. So
okay.
that is why I said the first session for any modules will be based on the process so that you're having full information about it. Once that is done, next we are going to move into configuration.
Okay. Yeah, got it.
Yeah, Diksha.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's all. That was my question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Welcome, Diksha.
Uh, Jai, Jai, you need to unmute yourself. Hello, Jai, can you hear me? Please unmute yourselves so that you know.
Hi, Sunil. Hi, Manoj. My question is that, hello,
Yeah, Jay.
can you hear me?
Yeah, Jay.
So, how many session will be for the supplier SL supplier enablement?
This is a one session thing, right? So basically, over here, Jay, remember, as I said, for each of these modules, we will have one session for the process, one session for the configuration.
For each module, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
barring the
So, how many?
integration. Why? Because integration will be having generally 2.5 session because it's a little bit big. So that is why the exception is integration.
Okay. So, do you have any slide where which give the visibility like a which module and how many session and
Jai, I
name
will
of
be
the modules?
sending you the course contents, right? So that is not rigid. You see, like based upon, because what happened, like sometimes it may stretch, as Manoj said, right? So depending upon the
Hmm.
questions coming up, so it may stretch. So the sequence is always like this. Okay, we'll start with SLP process, then we'll take it up sourcing, contracting and approvals,
Hmm.
then we'll go to P2P process. Okay, and we'll go to the again SLP supplier enablement, then we'll go for data uploads, then integration. So this is how the process which we
Yeah.
have already discussed in the
Yeah.
demo session. Please go through the demo sessions. We had given a clear overview on that part. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So is there
and
any?
guys, don't think like P2P means like only two session. Why? Because you will see P2P means it's a amalgamation of uh, catalog, approval workflow. Okay, the P2P uh, normal process over there, and then the guided buying. So basically, it consists of 4 different topics, almost like 2 sessions for each of them. So don't think like, hey, P2P means we were going to have 2 sessions like this.
Okay. Yeah, I know the P2Ps are quite bigger. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it over here.
Is there anything else, Jay, to ask?
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks. Thanks, Manoj.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ari.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks.
Ramarao?
Hi everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, we are.
Uh, Manoj, my question is regarding the pre-process. Right. So in the pre-process, you have mentioned that
Mhm.
from the buyer side, we will be putting the questionnaire or some to gather some information from the supplier. What I
Mhm.
it seems the similar kind of information only means the information which we will put in the request form. That is the similar information which we will put in the corporate URL or the corporate page where the supplier will go and give the initial
Mhm.
information for the request.
Mhm.
Is that right?
Mhm. Yes, see that particular feature is also available, but the thing is like this generally when we will go for pre-sales activity means like just before at the time of bidding of the project. So that time generally the clients are interested in that. But when we will go for implementation, client will say, I want to control which supplier can come into my realm or which should not. Why? Because
Okay.
ultimately all of the suppliers, if they have given that particular link, you know all of the suppliers will be coming and they will be logging it. So what will happen
Yeah,
is
yeah.
like supply manager don't have the time to verify all the information. They will check, okay, these are the information. By by the
Right,
way, you
right,
will see
right.
only 6 or 7 basic information is taken. So they will
Yeah.
accept it. So what will happen is like
Yeah.
there will be security lapses. So that is
No,
why
no.
most of the companies will say, although that particular process is there, I will not
Mhm.
implement it.
Yeah, the something is what why I'm asking is if we can have
Yeah.
a similar question there,
Mhm.
then the supplier enablement team, which sits in between the supplier and the supplier manager,
Yeah.
they can only just validate that instead of again filling all the information and submitting for supplier request
Yeah.
manager, they can simply validate and send that information directly to supplier request manager, right?
Yeah.
Instead
But
of
then
again
again,
filling that form.
yeah. So it's a very good thing, Ramara, which you pick up this particular point over there. But the thing is, like, if you will see, supply request process is a very small process. Basically, what will happen is like this particular process will be completed in 1 day or maximum by 2 days. Okay. So if here generally we never send a question here. Why? Because we are going to evaluate a supplier. Generally, we will check the eligibility criteria where in the registration, in the qualification when we are going to do that. So generally here we don't add questionnaires, and if we add a questionnaire again, this particular process will become 6 7 days or maybe 10 days particular process. So when you will working in a big project, you will see your client will be coming and saying to you that I want a turnaround time. Turnaround time is like the one cycle. Basically, one cycle for the one supplier, how much time it is taking, they want to calculate average time over there. So that generally should be low. Why? Because when you will compare Ariba with SRM or MM over there, Ariba's process can be automated. As I said before, 50 to 55% of the processes can be automated, and the turnaround time for each of this process completion is very, very low. Why? Because all of these things can be completed in within short period. So that is why most client will say, okay, these particular processes are there, very good, but I am having this particular kind of limitation. So always remember, what you said is totally correct over there. It can be done over there. So if your client is saying, I don't want a shorter, cycle time over there for you completing my SLP process, then yes, it can be implemented. But most of the client will be saying, I want to take the advantage of SAP Ariba shorter turnaround time. So that is why I want to implement this particular process.
Okay, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. Any other queries, Ramara?
No, no, sir. I'm very sorry for your
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think all of you will be having some query once again once you see this registration and qualification particular process over here.
Okay, Ramarao, thank
Yeah.
you. And guys, request everyone, because some of you are pinging me, the font size are very small. So to make it bigger, you can maximize the screen, viewing screen. You can maximize so that you can see the bigger font size. So you can do it
And
by
actually,
the
guys, you will see that I have already, increased the font size to 150% over here in the Chrome browser over here already.
yeah.
So please listen to Era's advice over here. Why? Because if you listen to Era's advice, what will happen is like the fund will automatically their size will increase. Why? Because you are generally increasing the resolution by maximizing the window.
Yeah, Manoj, thank you. Okay, so right then, Satish, please go ahead. Satish, you have any query? Okay, Praveen, you can go ahead. You need to unmute yourself because I can't see the unmute button here. I don't know. Something is wrong with your audio basically. Okay. Praveen, can you unmute yourself? Okay. Premraj? Premraj, you need to unmute yourself. Yeah, please go ahead, Prem.
Yeah, I just heard about guided buying, so I just wanted to check out at what portion, what time is it covered, at in what module is it covered? Guided
See,
buying.
Premraj, actually, it will be covered in the P2P just after our uh, normal P2P process has been done. We are going to have a look at the guided buying.
Okay, okay, okay. Yeah, thank you. And
Yeah, why? Because like
yeah,
actually guided buying is the new UI, and
yeah,
P2P normal P2P is actually a classical UI right now. It is called. So basically, first we need to have a look at all the different configuration in classical UI for the P2P.
okay,
Then we should jump to the guided buying. Why? Because then it will make sense.
okay. And just a curious question: what is difference between spot buy, P2P, and guided buy? Is there a similarity or is there different things?
See, basically P2P and guided buying is the same thing over here. Okay,
Okay,
spot buy actually it is not actually spot buying. It is called as spot buy catalogs over there. So basically, if you are going for Ariba Snap implementation, basically
okay,
the normal implementation which we do is like Ariba normal implementation. Snap is another set of advanced Ariba implementation which we do. And if we are going to do with advanced Ariba implementation, that is Ariba Snap, then instead of implementing the Ariba catalogs, that is the APC, Ariba
okay,
procurement content, we will be using the spot buy catalogs.
okay, okay. Okay, so I mean, spot buy is not part of our module. So guided buying is only guided buying as a part of our module, right?
Yeah, because see,
Okay,
ultimately, if I want to, tell about this particular buy, spot buy catalogs, I have to say about Ariba Snap. But actually, if you look at our offerings over there, we not only offer the normal Ariba sessions over here, we also offer advanced Ariba sessions. So
okay,
this Ariba Snap with Fieldglass and CIG, we generally deliver it over there through the
okay,
advanced Ariba sessions.
okay. And thank you. And one final question: when we're looking at these fields, is there a
Yeah.
place where I can get a list of all the fields that is there in a in a process, for example, or on a module? For example,
Yeah.
supplier management. Can I know what are the fields that is available and what is it trying to capture? Is there a place where I can get that list,
Yes, you
or is it
can
that I?
get it, but not
Yeah.
directly, indirectly. Indirectly in
Okay.
the sense why? Because you will see when we will be covering the data loads over there, you will be seeing there will be one thing which is called as data dictionary. So for each
Okay.
of these data loads, what are the fields, what is the data type of the fields, what those fields signifies, all of those information can be seen within the data dictionary. It's actually a huge Excel file. So yes, you
Okay.
will have that information, but not according to the module, but according to the data loads.
Okay. 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 Right. That's fine. Might be I can take it up when as and when we reach there. Thank
Yeah,
you. Yeah. Thank you for now.
yeah. Welcome, Prem. Yeah. Uh, Praveen, can you please go ahead?
Yeah, Manoj. So if I am going to move from a different from a legacy system to SAP Ariba, so how would
Yeah.
we register the whole content, like plus some X number of suppliers at a time, like a mass upload, or how we do that?
Yeah. So basically, you're talking about like replicating your ECC supplier into SAP Ariba, right?
That's right.
So basically, that generally thing was done before SLP. It was done through the master data integration, but once SLP got launched, so then there is a thing called as SLP mass data loads. So that is basically the configuration here, which we generally see for SLP. So remember, there are quite a number of steps, and that generally we do at the time of integration. Why? Because remember, master data integration, I have to say over there, then I have to compare it with SLP, then I have to tell them what is the advantage and disadvantages over there. So that also we are going to see in our sessions only, but in the integration sessions.
Okay. Thanks, Manoj.
Yeah, welcome, Robin. So remember this thing, guys, that all these things we follow a certain methodology. Why? Because you will be you might be thinking, hey, why with SLP? Why not with P2P? Why not with integration? We begin our session. Why? Because each and everything is interconnected and linked. So in our first session only, I don't want to go into too much complex process. But from tomorrow, what will happen is like you will see the complexity is rising step by step, so that all of you can absorb that particular knowledge over there. So on the next Saturday, it will be much more complex compared to this Saturday. It will be like that only, guys.
Thank you, Manoj. Okay, Satya Prakash. Satya Prakash, would you please unmute yourself?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, Satya.
Yes, Manu. So I have just one question here. Like, this is internal process. Supplier request is an internal process. So is there any way like supplier himself can reach out to buyers? Like, I want to register for your organization.
Yes, that particular thing also can be done when, because they will have a different, they will have that particular email ID, right? Group email ID. So generally, sometimes where the supplier uses it, apart from sending the mail for the supplier request. So generally, if there is any change of data, okay, or any change of contact person during the supplier request process, so they will be uploading it again. But in general, if the supplier, if they want to ask about the supplier registration process, generally the supply enablement team member, they are going to say, please wait, we are going to do it, and once we are going to do it, you are going to get a notification. It will be an automated notification in your email. It will be done. Until that time, you have to wait. Why? Because once you complete the supply request process, then it has to be initiated. You can see the registration process tab over there is coming. The registration process has to be initiated. Once it is initiated and you to fill up some of the data and select the questionnaire and send the questionnaires, then only they will receive a email, and that particular email will be more than enough. Why? Because we are also going to see the mail. That email, once the supplier gets, supplier will know, okay, I have to register in Ariba network.
So you mean supplier cannot initiate this supplier request process?
Exactly. Exactly. So, but indirectly they are doing it. Indirectly they are doing it. How? Because they are sending the email, right? They are sending the email with all this information. Then only supply enablement team can say, okay, we have to initiate their process. But unless and until that email is not received by the supply enablement team cannot create their profile. So basically, in the system, buyer is doing it on behalf of the supplier, but actually, as I said in the preceding process, supplier is triggering the process, but not within the system, but through a mail.
Okay. Okay. Next question I have is this designing of all the fields which are coming on supplier request template. So
Yeah.
this we can design, right? I mean, it can be customized.
Yeah. So there is two things, as I said before. See, as I said, first one is first kind of requirement will be taken care by standard process. No need to worry about it. There are another two category left. What are those two category? One is through configuration, another is through configuration, customization. Okay. So if we are going to change the formatting of the field, okay, or if we are going to change the what you can say, or add a custom field over there. By the way, custom field is known as flex fields in SAP Ariba. So if you're going to do this thing, this will fall under the customization. Now, as we are working in a cloud-based solution, this particular thing will be handled by SAP Ariba itself. Why? Because this will require technical level changes, basically source code changes. We don't have the authorization to do the source code changes. Only SAP Ariba employees can do it. So basically, you have to create an enhancement request. Once the enhancement request is created, then only those customization will be done.
Okay, so you are going to show configuration in next session, right? These template configuration and
Yeah, definitely. All of those things we are going to see. But actually, the configuration will begin from next Saturday. Why? Because for the SLP, as I said, it's totally falling under the integration. Why? Because SLP is not linked into the normal integration area. SLP has its own integration process. So that is why SLP's integration process has been merged with the integration. So that is why I said 3 sessions for integration will be there. Okay. Second thing is like tomorrow we are going to see the sourcing process. Next week, that means on Saturday, we are going to see the sourcing template configuration. So generally when we begin our session, the first configuration session is for sourcing templates.
okay.
Yeah. Any other queries, Satya?
And where do we map this user IDs to role, like supplier request manager? Should we map to some ID, right?
Yeah.
How
Generally, we generally see you will be, if you are a super administrator, okay, you can do it manually, but generally we don't do it manually. Why? Because there will be 200 buyers or 300 buyers in a system. So we do it as a part of data loads. In the data loads, what we will do is like we will basically create those users. Once we create those users, we will map these roles with the users over there.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, welcome, Satya.
Yeah, thank you, Satya. Saurabh?
Hey, hi Rajan. Hey Manoj.
Yeah, hi.
How are you?
Yeah, hello, Saurav.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
this
I'm
is
fine.
first class. Yeah, can you hear me, bud?
Yeah, definitely. We are
Yeah.
able to hear you.
Yeah, maybe this is my first class. So basically, I would start with a little brief introduction. So I'm a senior solution architect for SAP HANA Logistics and did implementation on SLP and Invoice Flow. But I will keep it for now short, and probably can talk about that later. But I will jump straight into those questions. Okay, so I think I pinged you. So my first question would be, so right, when we create the supplier request form, and we have basically it gets routed to supplier manager, right? Request manager.
Yeah.
At this point of a time, do they get email notification? How would they get notified? The manager that, hey.
So once the approval starts over here, what will happen is like automatic email notification will be there. Generally, this particular notification will be pre-configured where at a template level over there in the notification in the approval task over there. So basically on that, what will happen is like once the approval request gets submitted, automatically all the users who is having the supplier request manager role will be notified through email. Now, as you know, in SAP Ariba, the thing is like any one of this person, if they log in and approve it, the approval will be done. So that is how the notification as well as the approval process runs.
So it means like it's defaulted, right, in the configuration, in the template config. The only thing is basically if you are implementing that in any of the system, any of the companies, right, organization. So we just need to fill those manager names and email. Or
no, not actually name. Basically, sort of on this part, what we need to do is like we need to actually give the role over there in the template who will be the approver, right? And in the master data load, as I said, what you're going to do is like you're going to relate the user ID with the roles over there. So once you do it, automatically any supplier request which you will create, it will trigger to the groups, that means roles. Once it triggers to the roles, Ariba will it will check in the database that which user IDs are having this particular roles, and based upon that, all of them are going to receive this notification email, automated notification email.
Okay. And my second question is, there is a button called request additional info button, right?
Yeah.
So basically say that rather than approving, so assume this is what happens, rather than approving, right? If the manager decides to seek some additional information, when you click on that particular information, will that send an email notification again to the end user, the buyer?
Yeah, it will send over there. So basically, once you click on the request additional info, what will happen is like within the comment section, you have to give the comment that, okay, this particular field, I need it. Okay, even though if it is not a mandatory field, it's an optional field, but we require it for our clarity or for clarification purposes. So until and unless that particular field is not filled, I cannot approve it or reject it. So once this comment will be then he will submit. That means the supply request manager will submit that particular thing. Once it is submitted, automatically a notification will come to the end user.
Yeah. So basically, all this configuration is based on the template level, if my understanding is right. So,
yeah. It will see in upstream. What will happen is like sort of most of the time, almost apart from loading of the data, if any configuration is there, it has to be done in a template.
Okay.
So comparing this thing with downstream and upstream, is a little bit unique. Why? Because there are not much consultant in the market for upstream, but upstream configuration, if you know it, it's very easy. Downstream integration on the downstream configuration on the other hand is a bit technical over there.
I understand. Sorry, go ahead, please. Sorry.
Yeah, so upstream is generally good compared to the downstream. That's the first thing. Second thing is like on the job purpose or on the job activities, I will say upstream will give you much more what you can say Philip, or much more added advantage to your resume. Downstream will also add. I am not saying like downstream means you should not do downstream. Basically, right now, if you go into the market, you will see generally in any implementation, Ariba, most of the clients will be using upstream plus downstream both, but they will begin with upstream. And once they begin with upstream, there will be a real scarcity of consultant is there in the market.
Okay. Yeah, we've been implementing this P2P S2P solutions for our service now. The client, right? But I was on the client side. So we only use a few pieces of Ariba like SLP, SIPM, right? So we upgrade to SLP and Invoice Pro we have. So, but apart from that, there are still some gaps which I need to still fill in. So basically, that's why. But after looking at your video, it was very impressive, the explanation that you gave.
Yeah, so because ultimately, if you see over here, Saurav, what will happen is like, see, most of the client, once they start using Ariba, it's just like addictive. It's just like, what you can say, old red wine.
Yep.
Okay. So once you drink it, and you will get addicted over there. Why? Because the process, the configuration, and the UI is much better compared to any other SAP solution. So generally, I have seen in the starting of my career when I was just started working in SAP Ariba. It was in 2012. In 2012, I will say, client, they never heard of Ariba's name. So generally, what they used to do is like they used to only implement sourcing. At that time, SLP was not there. SLP just got launched in 2017 only. So at that time, so basically they will say, I will only use SIPM, I will only use sourcing. But once they implemented that thing after 5 months, they will say, like, it's very good. Let's go ahead with the full solution. But right now in the market, client knows what is SAP Ariba. So they will say, there is no hesitation, go with the upstream plus downstream. But generally in Ariba, you will see there is a soft go live kind of process over there. Why? Because they will follow the agile methodology over there. So first, generally, we will configure the upstream. Once it is done, we will go live it. Then as a feature update, what we will do is like we will implement the downstream, and then we will, along with the integration, we are going to do another go live.
Yeah, we had complication with SIP where we could not extend the vendor to multiple companies. Yeah, those are the challenges, and then we upgrade to SLP. I mean, we maybe when time permits, we can discuss further. So I have one last question. I don't want to hold on to other guys too. So the versions, right? Ariba versions, we know about like 14S and 15S versions, right? So basically,
we are actually in 14S right now, and and if you ask for my advice, I will suggest please don't move to 15S. Why? Because whatever Ariba says, 15S is an unstable version. Once you start using it, what will happen is like there will be a lot of standard bugs. And what you will do is like you will go to connect.ariba.com and you will create a service request, and then you will create a Jira ticket. Yeah, not 2 months, not 2 months. Sometimes this Jira ticket will not get solved within 6-7 months also. Why? Because they are having that issue. So what I can suggest is like Ariba 15S is going to become a stable solution, but maybe at the end of 2020, not before that.
Yeah. So now when you say version, right, 14s, 15s, right? So if you are using
Yeah.
14, it implicates it that, you know, we are using for all the H2P process, right? It's not like
14S
or
Ariba 14S is for the full Ariba solution. So basically, in this particular login only, you're going to get both the upstream as well as downstream. So this particular software, Ariba software which we are using, it is a 14S, and remember that will be for all the modules.
Okay, yeah, cool. Yeah, I have a few questions, others, but I will keep it at the very end because Yanni has want to cover that registration piece, right? So I think this is all for now. Maybe we can go on the last session. I go over there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, thank you,
Thanks,
sir.
Saurav.
Yeah.
Sravan, the last one.
Hi, Manoj.
Yeah. Hello, Saurav.
Hi, everyone. So it's a general question. So after we completing the registration process, if you want to modify the supplier information, then again the same process, right?
No. So if you want to modify this particular process, what you need to do is like, you need to come over here. Okay. You need to come into the contact information over here. So you can edit it over here. See, you have an option for editing it. Okay.
Okay.
So that means basically
again,
remember why this particular process has been given for the editing purpose. Why? Because see, editing purpose means I will change the first name, last name. Obviously, a company's name can change. Its contact person name can also change. Its email ID can also change. So for that, we don't need to go ahead and, what you can say, like begin with a whole new process. Okay, whole new process when it will become, we will see that particular thing in our qualification scenario. In the qualification scenario, you will see commodity code and regions will be coming over there. So if this particular thing is changing, let's say commodity code is notebook and region is India. But right now supplier is saying, hey, I am not giving notebook in India, I am giving notebook in US. So what is happening? The combination is changing. So there you have to do a new qualification. But for changes in any of these name, email IDs, phone numbers, addresses, that does not require you to do the new request or new registration process once again.
okay.
Yeah. Any other queries, Ravan?
Yeah. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Ravan.
Okay. Is there anybody else, guys, who wants to ask the queries? Please raise your hand. Hello. Yeah. 1 second. Yeah, Tariq, I'm coming to you. Yeah, Tariq, please go ahead.
Thank you, Manoj. I have a question for the supplier SM, the SM vendor ID that has been created after approving the supplier request. Is that number unique for me as Accenture with that supplier ANZ, or it's common for all buyers in the Ariba network? And I mean, let's say the supplier ANZ.
Yeah, I actually, Tariq, I got your query. It's a very good query. Actually, it's a very good query which you have raised. So what actually you're talking about, the scenario is like this particular supplier which has been created. This particular supplier can not only register with one buying organization, but different buying organization. Like, let's say, for example, Accenture is using Ariba, Infosys is using Ariba, Wipro is using Ariba. And let's say I am the supplier, Manoj supplier, and I want to do business with Accenture, with Infosys, and with Wipro. So yes, if I go and register with three of their different system, what will happen? Remember, SM vendor ID will be different across the supplier for these three systems. But we will see that in the registration process, the Ariba network ID for the supplier will be same across all the Ariba system, whether it's from Accenture, whether it's from Infosys, whether it's from Wipro, it does not matter. So always remember, SM vendor ID for the same supplier in different Ariba system will be different, but Ariba network ID will be same across all the Ariba system.
Very well, thank you. Another two quick questions. Let's say now it comes to the discovery. Let's say I want to search for vendors or suppliers that working on technology or in construction. Is there any way to do this discovery initially before the sending, let's say, the supplier request? In addition to that, is there any kind, when it comes to the supply request, let's say I can add a certain fields, let's say for certain certificates when it comes to a supply with the construction industry? That's it.
Yeah. So Tariq, basically, the thing is like, if you want to use discovery for that particular purpose, you don't need to do enhancement or anything. Neither the configuration is required. You just go into the sourcing. Okay, you will have your commodity code and regions over there. So based upon that, instead of adding a supplier, what you can do is like you can post it to Ariba network. Basically, you can post it to Ariba Discovery over there. Once you post it to Ariba Discovery, what will happen is like, based upon your commodity code and region, Ariba is only going to propose you, see, these are the defined suppliers which are existing for your commodity code and region combination. So let's say, for example, 100 supplier has been, it will come in the search list automatically based on your commodity code and region. Now, once this 100 supplier comes, what you will do is like, whichever supplier you like, you will click on them and you will add those particular supplier where within your sourcing event. Now, when you will add in the sourcing event, system will say, hey, this particular supplier is not existing within your Ariba system. So what you will do next? You will just click on create supplier. Once you create supplier, what will happen is like the supplier request process will automatically begin. But the only thing is like, you have to keep in mind, SLP should be implemented. Else what will happen? It will directly go into SIPM.
Very well. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah, and actually, Tariq, I have not finished for the third question. Actually, third question answered is like, yes, you can change the particular form, whether it's in supply request, whether it's in supplier registration, whether it's in supplier qualification also. Okay, the thing is like, based upon one certificate, we can work on another fields. Yes, it can be done, it can be added, but I will suggest you have to create then conditions. More on this part, like this template configuration, this we are going to see next Saturday. In the next Saturday part, I will only be showing you that if you want some questions, and based upon the answer of that particular question, another question should be visible. How it can be done, we will be going to show you. Yes, you can have dynamic kind of field setting over there, where based on the answer of one question, you can make another question visible or invisible. So yes, it can be done. Similarly, for attachment also, if the attachment has been done, so based upon that, there might be another question which will be coming. Or basically, you can say your client's requirement is like, if the answer to a question is yes, then this particular attachment field should be visible. If it is no, the attachment field should not be visible. Yes, we can configure that thing within the template.
Thank you, Manoj. Thank you, Eraz.
Yeah, welcome, Tariq.
Yeah, hi, Manoj. I think we have done with the queries. Guys, still, if anyone are having any queries, please raise your hand. Satish, were you asking anything? Hello. Okay, Jyoti, 1 second. 1 second, Jyoti. I am going to unmute you. Okay. Yeah, Kavya, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi Manoj.
Yeah, hello Kavya.
Yeah, hi. I just had a few queries here. Like now you have created this form as a part of supplier enablement team, right?
Yeah.
So like, is there any specific group that should be there to create this request? Like what is a group which should be there for the supplier enablement team?
Yeah, so basically remember this thing, that if you are working in the buyers part over there, so basically any junior buyer, basically junior buyers will be having what role, like sourcing agent, supplier agent, all those kind of role will be there. So they will be having this kind of role. Okay, so in each of this module, when we will be going over there, we will be mentioning you the specific role which is to be done. So basically what we will do is like, for the junior end user, we will always give the agent role. And agent, remember, this is not a specific role. Why? Because you will see supplier agent is one role, sourcing agent is one role, contracting agent is one role, purchasing agent is another role. Okay, like this, receiving agent will be also be there. So for each of these particular transactions, agent role is there. Agent role means what? They are the junior most end user.
Okay, okay, fine. And one more thing, Manoj, like you told, we can edit the supplier details anytime if required, right? So
Yeah.
whatever might be the change in the supplier details, will it trigger the approval flow again to the supplier manager, or is
No,
there
no,
a...
no, no, no. Only the thing is like if you are changing the email ID, then it will trigger the approval flow. But apart from the email ID, the contact person name, address, all those things, if you're changing, there will be no approval which will be getting triggered over here.
Okay. And is there any time span within which the approver need to take action, or else the reminder email will be sent?
Yeah.
Something like
So
that?
that thing is generally done through the configuration. So you can say it at two levels. First of all, you can send a reminder that after 2 days of the event get triggered, you can send a reminder mail. That is one option. The second option is like you can also specify that this particular approval flow must be completed within 5 days. Like this also you can configure. So there are two different options which are present over there, and based upon our customers need or clients need, we are going to generally configure those things.
Okay, okay. And one more query, Manoj, like you told, like an offline email will be sent to the approver, right?
Yeah.
So can the approver take the decision from that email, or he need to log into
No,
portal
no, no,
anyway?
no. No, actually, he will need to log into the portal. Basically, they will receive that particular URL over there. Once they click on the URL, they have to give their buyer ID and password over there. Once they give it, so automatically system will take them to the approval flow over there. And the second thing is like basic information about the details about the supply request, whether it's a sourcing request or sourcing project, whether it's a contract. Basic details will be there, but actually the approver generally take the information based on what? Basically on the detailed information, right? So that detailed information will never be present within the automatic email.
Okay, okay. And one last query, Manoj, like you told, like there is an auto logout timing, right? Is there
Yeah.
any option like we can increase that auto logout timing to half an hour or
Yeah.
something?
You can do that. Yeah, you can do that. But remember that particular thing can be generally be done by SAP Ariba people only. Okay. So what you need to do, you don't need to create a ER. You need to create a SR over here. Create a service request and say, I want the timeout to be changed from 10 minutes to 40 minutes, like this. Or else, if you're having the super admin role, so it will be coming within your configuration. It will be coming within the administration, code administration. Within the code administration, you can go to the parameters, and within the parameters you can set out the logout time over there. Instead of 10 minutes, you can make it 30 minutes or 40 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, Manoj. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Welcome,
you.
Kavya.
The last one is from Tanmay. Tanmay, can you just?
Hello.
Yeah, Tanmay.
Yeah, hi Manoj. So the question which I have is basically, say for example, there is a vendor in the system which has gone through all the three steps, like registration, qualification, and the third step. And it's we have
Yeah.
been the client has been dealing with the vendor for past few years or so. So when it has to undergo some changes, say for example, there are some vital fields such as bank details or anything. So when that happens, does the system re-triggers the whole flow of approval and everything, or it treats it as a completely new vendor? Or I mean, that's what my question was.
So basically, you're asking Tanmay over here that let's say you completed the whole process for the supply is already onboarded. Now
Correct.
you have added some more fields to the supply request or supply registration forms,
Yeah.
right? Then
Yeah.
what will happen? So
Yeah.
always remember in SAP Ariba, whenever we will do some configuration, it will never change your old supplier, which has already been onboarded. Even the supplier whose process is running active right now, let's say it is within approval, it will not be changed. So any new supplier request or any new sourcing process or any new contract process which you're going to do, at that time only all your changes in the template will take effect. So in that scenario, I think you have to do some manual activity, and that manual activity is like collecting those information from the supplier and
Oh,
loading the data through the mass data loads, but
okay. So
only for
basically,
the old suppliers.
I'll have to send them a mail stating these are the fields
Yeah.
which you need change and give me the appropriate data. So I'll upload them manually. So vendor will remain the same. That's what.
Yeah, vendor will remain the same. Their ID,
Okay.
SMID and ENID will be same. It will not change at all.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Manoj. Thank you.
Yeah. Welcome, Tanmay.
I think Manoj, we are done with the queries. So shall we take a quick small break or something, or shall we continue?
Yeah. Let's take a small break over here, Iraj. And once we return, we are going to have a look at the supplier registration process.
All right, Manoj, that sounds good. So guys, we'll just take quick small break, like 5 minutes. Okay, then we'll be back. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Iraj. Thank you, everybody. So let's take the take the small break, and then we will begin with our supplier registration process. Thank you all. Yeah, thanks for the confirmation, Iraj.
Yeah, Manoj. Thank you. Okay, guys, we are back now. Request you to be attentive. Sayed, Jagadev, Kavya, Tanmay. Okay, yeah. All right. All right, Manoj, we can start now.
Yeah, thanks, Iraj. Okay, so guys, we have seen the supply request process over here. We have completed the supply request process. We've seen the end result. Then what next? The next thing which we generally focus on is the supply registration process. Why? Because if you look at SAP Ariba's architecture, it's a little bit different from SRM and ECC, the pre-existing procurement solution. So there, if you create a supplier directly in your ECC or in SRM, automatically their user ID will get created and they can do the work. But here in Ariba, as I said, just by creating the supplier profile, it will not work. Why? Because their ANID has to be generated. When this particular ANID will be generated, generally, when the supplier create their credentials, basically their user ID password in Ariba network. So until and unless the ANID is not generated, you cannot use the supplier in any of your transaction. Why? Because Ariba uses this ANID to uniquely identify a supplier. Remember the SMID which I talked about, this is for SLP. But if you talk about Ariba as a whole, then Ariba only understand the ANID, not the SM vendor ID. So that is why until unless you haven't completed the registration process, you cannot do anything with this particular supplier. Now, how generally you will start with the process? So as I said, this is basically the supplier profile. Okay, 360-degree profile view. You will come over here. It's already over here. You will click on the registration over here. Remember, you have to click on this registration tab, guys. Once you click on the registration tab, click on the invite. Now, once you click on the invite, multiple things are over here. What are those multiple things? So you can see the first one is confirm questionnaires to be sent. What is this particular questionnaires? So basically, as I said before, in any, forget about Ariba for the time being. Why? Because we will come to the Ariba next. But before coming into Ariba, we should understand that how a supplier onboarding is done from a normal business point of view. From a business point of view, any buying organization, they will say, yes, I want to take a decision whether to onboard the supplier or not, but it will be based on some information, right? Basically, what are those particular information? It is always regarding the quality, the financial results, whether the client, whether the supplier is it's not having money or not. Why? Because see, when you will be onboarding the supplier, this particular supplier will be taking part in a different transaction. Now let's say if you create a sourcing project of $1 million or $5 million, and your supplier is showing the profit and loss account for 50,000 USD, will you give this particular sourcing uh, sourcing project, or basically the RFP, to this supplier? Even this supplier gives this lowest quote, are you still going to give it? No, it is not possible from a business point of view. Why? Because you will be thinking this guy earns a profit of 50,000 USD. How come this guy will be able to deliver a project which is of value of $2 million or $5 million? It's impossible. So that is why, guys, generally in any business, whenever we are onboarding a supplier, we will be capturing their financial information. We'll be capturing some other regulatory things like the different informations like government proof, government IDs, okay, and tax related some IDs will be there. Like in India, you will be having a PAN number, which will be required. Similarly, if you're looking at a business, you will have need to look at their GST number, right? Similarly, across all the all the geographic location, we will be having different numbers. So this particular information you need to capture. So where you will capture it? You will capture it over here in this particular questionnaire. So remember, all this questionnaire, it is there. Most people think like it's arbitrary, it's random. No, it's not random. These things, yes, we will do the configuration, but the thing is like we will not do it from our side. This has to be given from the client side. So client will give you the supplier eligibility criteria. These are the different criteria. We will do some ISO certification test. We will do some quality test. We will do some financial result test. Okay, all of this information, capacity test, all of these things will be there within the supplier eligibility criteria. Now, based upon that, those questionnaires configuration will be changed. So basically you will be adding the different questions over there. So once you do this thing, all of this particular questionnaires, what is done in a template, it will be appearing over here. So first of all, you should ask me over here, Manoj. See, the first 4 which is coming over here, it is having this tick mark. Very good. Why the last one is not having a tick mark? Means like it is having a tick mark, but I cannot edit it. Basically, remember this thing, guys, that the last one, that is a supplier registration questionnaire, this is a standard one. So by default, this will be a mandatory questionnaire. Okay, and rest of the other questionnaires generally are what? They're custom questionnaires. So custom questionnaires, Ariba system, Ariba system will give you the option whether to include them or to not. Okay, so remember about this thing. So that is why the ticks is coming. And in the last one, the tick is not coming over here. That means it's not editable. And if you choose the recipient, by default, supplier name and supplier email ID is coming. Why? Because in SLP, you will see the supplier email ID is the main mode of communication between the buyer and the supplier. So that is why this particular email ID has been added where? In the supplier request process only. So it will be coming from there. Okay. So once you see all this thing, what you're going to do is like you're going to click on send invite. Okay. It is taking some time. Okay. Yeah. Now you can see the registration status, what it is showing. It is showing invited. Invited means what? That means we have started the process from a buyer point of view over here. Just a moment, guys. Yeah. So basically over here, guys, as you can see, the registration status, it is showing what? It is showing invited over here. And same you can see at the top right hand side, the status is showing as invited. That means what? That means basically we have started or triggered the registration process, but with respect to whom? With respect to buyer. Remember this thing. So as a buyer, we have triggered this particular process. So as a buyer, our work completes for the time being right now. It has not been fully completed, but for the time being, our work is completed. Why? Because now everything is pending from the supplier side. So what next? So let me just unshare my screen once. Why? Because I have to log in into my email account over there. Means like the supplier email account over here. Then only I can show you the rest of the process. Okay, here it is. Just a moment. Give me a moment over here, guys. Okay. Just give me a moment over here, guys. I think just a moment. Okay. Give me a moment over here, guys. I think the email ID over here has been invalidated. Give me some 2-3 minutes over here. Just give me 2-3 minutes. So what I will be doing is like I will be updating the email ID over here once again. Then only it will work. Then only I think it will work. Just a moment. Yeah, just a moment. I'm just updating over here. I think the updating will not work. So what I have to do is like I have to create a new one only. Just a moment. I'm creating a new supplier over here. Okay, let me start with the registration. Okay. Now I think it will be going properly. Actually, guys, what happened over there was like I gave a wrong Gmail ID, and that particular, actually that Gmail ID is perfect over there, but actually it is blocked out over there due to some reason. So that is why, I was not receiving the email over there as a supplier. Now you can see that I have received a mail. Okay. So this is how a mail will look like. So basically remember this thing, guys, that whenever as a supplier, you're going to see this particular process, you will be receiving a mail like this. So once the buyer triggers the supplier registration process, okay, this particular mail will be going to whom? To the supplier email ID. So here, it will be saying that your registration process has already started. Okay. And here it is saying, if the new supplier already has an account with Ariba Network, sign it with your user ID, password, or you can create it one. Okay. So what you need to do as a supplier is like, you need to click here. But most people generally what they will do, they will open this Ariba spend management over here, and they will also open the Gmail account over here, and they are going to click here. What will happen? As I think all of us know that whenever we are working with a what you can say, with a web-based solution which is opened in the browser, there's a cookie which is created over there, and there will be issue with the cookie. So what you need to do whenever you're testing out this process, okay, in user training also, in supplier training also, you have to tell them that don't just click on over here, right click on this thing and click on copy link address. Once you click on copy link address, open another browser. Specifically, I will suggest using it or maybe Mozilla Firefox as well as Chrome. Okay, these three are the best one over there. Okay, so what I did, I just did a control V over here. Okay, because that particular URL of the link has been automatically copied from the copy link address, and here I just did a control V. Now what will happen? Automatically Ariba will take you to the Ariba network. And remember guys, don't use this thing in the same browser. Why? Because if you logged in into the Ariba spend management over there, and if you're logged in over there in the Ariba network, there will be issue with the cookie. Either use two different browser, or you can use two different system. Now I think someone was asking me generally, some participant was asking me, what will happen when the supplier has already created their account? They're already available, right? So what they will do? So they will use this particular login option. So once they click on login option, what will happen is like your previous user ID and password as a supplier in Ariba network, you can use it over here. Okay. And thinking on this particular part that, okay, your supplier does not exist. So what are you going to do? You're going to click on sign up. Okay. Now you can see all this particular information is coming from where? It is coming from the SLP, where we have entered this information. You can see the supplier name is coming, first name, last name, email ID is also coming. All of these things are coming. So let me just, put some something so that there is no issue over here. Or I think this one is a mandatory parameter in Ariba network, so there will be issues. Okay, and scroll down a little bit over here, guys. You will see the user ID and password over here. Now, if you read this particular format over there, what it is saying, the user ID must be in an email format. It has to be in an email format. So that is why it is coming like this. Remember, in Ariba spend management, when you will create a buyer ID, you can give a normal user ID. Okay. But when you will log in as a supplier in Ariba network and you will create their ID, it has to be in an email format. Basically, the email which you have provided as a supplier email, that will automatically come over there. If you want to change it, yes, you can change it. But remember, this format must be preserved. So I cannot change the format, but yes, I can change the wordings. So here I can say test hyphen ANZ supplier. Okay, and then you have to give a minimum 8-letter characters password. I will suggest using one special character, one numerals, one uppercase digit. Okay, and minimum of 8 character. Okay, once you have given this particular thing, what you have to do, you have to click on all the terms and agreement over here. Okay, once you do this, you have to click on create account and continue. Then what will happen? Automatically, the supplier's account in Ariba network will get created. It will take some time for the refreshing. Yeah. So this is how the supplier dashboard will look like in Ariba. And as you can see over here, automatically the registration questionnaire is here. How? Because if you remember, guys, we have selected a questionnaire from a buyer point of view, and whenever a supplier will create their ID, you will see that particular supplier, just a moment, is having a AN ID over here. That is why I said, guys, over here, that in registration process, this particular ANID is the most important part. And through this ANID part only, this questionnaire is coming through this ANID part. Remember, once you have created this user ID, supplier ID, where? In Ariba network, what will happen next? What will happen? So basically, this will also get updated in your Ariba spend management, and based on this ANID only, these questionnaires are coming. So always remember, this is one of the most trickiest question. Why? Because it will look very easy. It is coming automatically. Most people will think, no, actually it is not coming from through automated way, guys. The main selection over here is based on the Ariba network ID. So that is how even Ariba as well as Ariba network can determine who is the specific supplier and what questionnaires I will be sending. And remember, same thing will be used in sourcing, contracting, P2P, integration everywhere. Why? Because this ANID is a unique for each supplier. So if I want to create another supplier ANZ new over there, Ariba will immediately give up an error saying this particular ID exists with its own Ariba network ID. And you cannot have same user ID and same Ariba network. Why? Because if you're having same user ID, the Ariba network ID should be same. So you cannot be having such combination. Why? Because one Ariba network ID should be equivalent to that of a one user ID. Okay, so always keep this thing in mind. Now, as a supplier, what you will do? As a supplier, okay, what next thing you're going to do is like you need to click on the supplier registration questionnaire. Now, some of you participants might be asking me, Manoj, why from the supplier side you are making us see this thing? Because I totally agree with you guys that buyer side is the most important thing. Supply side is not always needed, but there is two different things. First of all, SLP is all about supplier only. Why? Because about supplier onboarding. So if I don't show this process, if I just theoretically tell them, you will not understand the configuration which we are doing. This will not only impact the buyer, this will also impact the supplier. But yes, in P2P, you can say, Manoj, hey, I don't want to see PO confirmation. Yeah, it is okay. Because there he will not do the configuration. So yes, there it makes sense. But here, it makes sense to see each and everything, not only from the buyer, but also from the supplier point of view too. So let us have a look at it over here. So what I will do, I will click, take this new name and put it over here. And you can say like ANZ. You also total number of employees, you can put somewhere around 1001. Supplier type, third party vendor. Was the legal entity established after October 2015? No. Do you agree with our code of conduct? Yes. No. I am not going to upload the certificates. Okay. Add banking information. Yes. So generally what we will do, we will click on this one, domestic. A bank ID, we will put something over here. And country, we will choose India. Okay, no, I don't want this one. I just want to click on OK. Cannot be longer than 4. Okay. Okay. So now I have entered the information for the supplier registration questionnaire. What I'm going to do, I'm going to click on submit enter response and click on OK. Once I click on OK, what will happen? Ariba will show you your response have been submitted. Thank you for participating in the event. That means if you go back to your dashboard, a supplier dashboard, what will happen is like, just give him a moment over here. Sometimes, these things happens. Okay, now if you see this registration questionnaire in the dashboard, you can see the status has completed. Which one? Supplier registration questionnaire. Why it has been completed? Because we have already submitted it. So what next? Same like this. The next particular questionnaire I'm going to do. Oh, this one is a small one. Very good. Okay, select this particular commodity code and submit enter response. Okay, now you can see this particular question here is also coming over here. The next one is cloud software data privacy. So this one also I am going to click. I'm going to click on yes. Previous year and so. So basically, as a supplier, what we have seen that all of these registration questionnaires have been completed by us. Now the supplier will say, okay, I have filled up all your questionnaires. Now the ball is in buyer's court. Why? Because buyer will be seeing all this particular information. So what they will do generally, they will come over here in the registration. Now, once they come over here in the registration, there will be different things. But before I go into each and everything over here, I think you should understand what are these particular things. So basically, remember guys, once the supplier submits the different questionnaire, what next they are going to do? The next thing buyer is going to check out is like automatically buyer will get an email. Which buyer? The question is which buyer? Basically, remember the supplier registration manager, not the supplier request manager. Supplier request manager is for supplier request. Here, the approver are supplier registration manager. So your supplier registration manager is going to get an automatic approval email. Okay. Then once they look into the notification, they click on the link, give their buyer ID and password. This particular screen will open. So here, the buyer will generally complete some of the task. Now, I totally agree with you guys. If you see over here, one is an approval task and the rest of the three things are a non-approval task. What do you mean by this thing? So basically, always remember, supplier registration and supplier qualification process has a lot of questionnaire. So before you just jump to the approval, what will happen is like different people, okay, different people over here has to validate the data. Why? Because this is a business need over here. According to the business need, you will see that there will be some junior end user who will be doing the validation. Once the validation is complete, then only the approval should get triggered. And when I will tell you the reason, I think all of you will be start laughing. The main reason which most of the clients will say is like, hey, my supplier manager is a high level guy. He will be a little bit lazy. Why? Because he will be preoccupied with other works. So here what they will do is like they will just check the small information. Okay, once they check the small information, means like main information, mandatory information, other optional things they will not check. They will just approve it. So that is why most of the projects where you are going to work, they are going to say before the approval is triggered, there will be some tasks which the end user, means like junior end user, needs to do. So basically, what are those tasks? That is validate the questionnaire according to the supplier eligibility criteria. Once the validation has been done, okay, they will be filling up some of the things, and the last step is the approval. So in the last step, what will happen is like the supplier manager, they will directly check, okay, these are the tasks, okay, these guys has approved it, they have done it over there, everything is okay, so then I can proceed ahead. So they will check only the mandatory fields, that's it. So this is the main reason, guys. So sometimes we do understand that it does not make any sense functionally or technically, but it does make sense from a business point of view. So those things also we have to keep in mind when we are going for any implementation project. Now, as I said, approval is the last one. Now here, this particular task does not have any value. Why? Because SAP Ariba's template over here is for the training server. So that is why it is happening like this over here. Okay, so we'll just say completed and click on confirm mark complete. Then you will see, just a moment. Let me just refresh the screen once again. Okay, so you can see complete task. What? Complete task 1, this one. Right now we have, on which we have marked as completed. Okay, and the rest of the 2 pending tasks is shown because these are non-approval. So let us see one by one what are those particular tasks. So you will see over there are some data, some information which has been there. Now you should ask me over here that, Manoj, from where this particular data is coming? Basically I will say to you guys, this is coming from where? This is coming from your customization. From the customization only, this is particularly coming over here. Okay, so you click on the company code, give any company code, then you select the payment method, like you can say wire, payment term as 30 days. Okay, and you can click on the reconciliation account as legal and supplier type as what happened, must have. Okay, once you have given this particular information, what next? I think there is some issue. Okay, I need to just complete as done. Why it is appearing like this? I think, guys, let me just refresh the screen once again. Yeah, I think this is the only issue which I was thinking. So I have to log in once again with my user ID. And remember, guys, in development realm and in any training server, when you were working, this sometimes will happen, even though it does not have any meaning for those things. These are definitely technical issues which will be keeping up. And remember, even if you raise a service request for this thing, Ariba is going to say to you that we are not going to what you can say, resolve this thing. Why? Because ultimately they are going to say this is just for your normal purposes only. So whether you want to do it or not do it, it's your choice. But in production, it will not be like this. And a few important thing when you will see, it's like people know about SR, right? They think most of the participant think SR can be done within it will be solved within the SLA, proper SLA, very high high. There will be different SLAs, right? 2 working days, 3 working days, 4 working days. Okay, remember, it will never happen in your real time. Okay, so once we have filled up all this particular thing, what next? We are going to click on mark complete. Once we are going to mark complete, then what we are going to do? We are going to click on done. Then you will see over here in the registration tab, another task has also gone into the complete status. Now you can see over here, there was one question, task. This particular task is also completed. Now there is only one non-approval task which is still pending. So here also I will go and I will click on the start. And this is a lot of information over here. So what I'm going to do is, like, I'm going to give only the mandatory parameters over here. No, Did the supplier pass the background and compliance check? Yes. Supplier profile validation? Yes. Review and validation? Yes. Validation data format? Yes. Inform? Yes. Yes. Today's date we are going to put 29 June. And click on mark completed. Okay. The message has came. I'm going to click on done. Once again, I will come to the registration status and you will notice one thing. You can only see the approval is coming over there. That means what? That means only the approval is left over here, nothing else. And same thing in the flow, if you go and see, you can see only this approval is showing in blue. That means what? It is still pending, because rest of the things, if you see, it is coming in green. That means it has been completed. See, complete, complete, complete. Okay, everything is coming in complete, but this thing is still pending. So what will happen? You click on approve/deny. Now here, guys, since you're the approver, what will happen? You will see this particular questionnaires information, which has been filled by whom? Which has been filled by the supplier. Why? Because you're the approver. You should see this information. I do agree with all of you guys when you can say like this has already been seen by the junior guys, Manoj, which you have done the non-approval task over there. Yes, I will say yes, but still they will have a look at the different information, right? Like what's the total amount of money which is generally, they are earning, the supplier is earning, what is the profit and loss account and all of those stuff. At least basic mandatory things they're going to check the approver. Once they check all these things, what will happen? They are going to click on approve. And here also, they are going to click on approve. And what will happen? The first level of approval will be done. I think it is taking some time. I think there is definitely some cookie issues over here. That's good. The registration approval get completed. Now you can see generally who has done the approval. You can click on this particular thing and you can see, because I have given the comment that it is coming over here and I have given the approval over here. So where I have given the approval, see over here it is coming, approval for supplier registration project owner has been completed. And that is why the status of the supplier is showing as what? Registered. That means what? That means now the supplier is a registered supplier. And immediate effect, if you want to see whether at least the supplier is in registered status or not, you can see it over here. What is this particular thing, guys? So you can see the SM vendor ID over here, and along with the SM vendor ID, you can also see the AN ID. And if you just compare this particular AN ID with what? With the AN ID which has been created in Ariba network, it is going to match. Where you can do it? Just a moment. You can do it over here. You can match this particular AN ID 14537-40081. Okay. 14537-40081-T. same ANID is reflected. So I think there was one question that if this same supplier, let's say this is one Ariba system, in another Ariba system they have, that means like client, this particular supplier is registered, what will happen? So remember this thing, guys, this ANID will be same across all the Ariba system. Only thing which will change is this particular SM vendor ID. Why? Because it depends on the client system. This ANID does not depend on the client system. Okay. So this is how you can understand over here, guys, that the supplier registration is completed. Okay. Now this particular supplier can take part in sourcing, in contracting, sorry, in sourcing process at least. Okay. For the time being, I'm telling you like this, but tomorrow when I will go into the sourcing, there you will see generally the next step which we are going to see right now is qualification. But generally this is not the process. Why? Because you will see each of these processes in Ariba is interlinked among each other. Interlinked what? So first of all, let me tell you a little bit into the depth I am going, guys. Supplier. Most participants think supplier is one. When I'm talking about supplier ANZ new over here, okay, that means this particular supplier can take part in any transaction process. Most participants think like that. Even when I moved into SAP Ariba newly, I also used to think like that, but actually that is not true, guys. Why? Because this particular supplier is only a upstream supplier right now. Guys, am I audible properly now?
Yeah, very much audible, Manoj. Very clearly audible you are. Shravan, I think there is some issue from your end, so you can check it your audio properly. Yeah, please go ahead, Manoj. It's very clear.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Raj, for the information. Yeah. Thanks, guys, for the information. So remember this thing, guys, that when I'm talking about supplier is always different. Why? Because upstream and downstream solution is totally different. Remember this thing. Why? Because most people think most participants think that it is the same database. No, guys. Upstream is having its own separate database. Downstream is having its own separate database. So when I'm talking about supplier through SLP, at this stage, this supplier has already been created. Totally agree with you. There is no disputing that. Even you can use this particular supplier in sourcing, but you cannot use this supplier in downstream. That means in your P2P process. Basically, you cannot use this supplier in your purchase requisition. Why? Neither in PO, neither in invoicing, because you have to create a downstream supplier. That was the issue with SIPM. That is why SLP got launched. In SIPM, if you worked over there, from the starting till the ending, you will only work with upstream supplier. What will happen to downstream supplier? You have to manually create it. Most of the clients will say, hey, this is particular headache. Why I will do this particular activities? So behold, here came the SLP. Now SLP, it is saying you have completed the registration process. That's good, boss. Basically, you have created a full-fledged upstream supplier. You can work with the supplier for your sourcing project. Same thing we are going to see tomorrow. In the sourcing project, we are only going to take only registered supplier. But two questions comes over here. Manoj, first of all, you said downstream supplier is different. So when we will create a downstream supplier? Very good question. And the second question, which you should all be asking me, is like, Manoj, you said upstream supplier. In upstream, contract is also there. So you are saying that After doing the registration, only you can take this supplier where? In your sourcing process. Why not in contracting process? So what's the answer to both of this particular question? It's a little bit complex. So why? Because guys, see, we have to go into a depth. So at the beginning of the session, I didn't want to start with all of this thing. Why? Because it could have been much tougher. But for the clarity and purpose, let us understand. So I think most of you who are coming from SAP background, they will understand there's a difference between supplier and a potential supplier, right? What's the difference between a potential supplier and a normal supplier? Potential supplier, that means what? Oh, like, it's just like an upcoming talent kind of thing. Hey, I am seeing him as one of the traits. Somebody will say, hey, I'm looking at him and I can see the traits of Sachin Tendulkar. But still he or she has to prove it, right? Similarly, the potential suppliers are those suppliers with whom you're dealing. They are showing promises, but they are still not your trusted supplier. Who is a full-fledged supplier? The supplier with whom you have been doing business for the last 2-3 years. They have proved to yourself, they have earned your trust. They also trust you, you also trust them. You means bracket purchasing organization. Or basically not purchasing, you can say like, buying organization. So that's the difference. So in SAP Ariba's terminology, what SAP Ariba is saying is like, through SLP, once you complete the registration process, what does this particular thing means? That means this is a potential supplier. He hasn't proved to you. When he or she will prove it? When they will win the RFP. That is how you're going to determine over here in Ariba who is a potential supplier, who is a full-fledged supplier. Potential supplier are the suppliers who have registered themselves, but they haven't won a bid. Bid means RFP/sourcing project. Once they have won that particular bid, so let's say you have registered 5 suppliers. Out of this 5 supplier, only 1 supplier has been awarded a bid. What will happen? For that particular supplier only, you're going to do the qualification. For the rest of the other 4 supplier, you're not going to do qualification. So that is the difference. So those 4 different suppliers are what? Are potential supplier. And this particular supplier who has been awarded your bid, this particular supplier is a full-fledged supplier. Now, what I will do? For that particular supplier, I will qualify it. Once I qualify it, remember, after that sourcing process, what you are going to do? From the sourcing process, you are going to do a follow-on contract. But before doing the contract, you have to do the qualification. Why? Because in SLP, if you do the qualification, once the qualification process has been successfully completed within 1 hour or maybe 45 minutes, this supplier will be automatically replicated from the upstream to the downstream. And then you will be asking me, Manoj, why it is important in contract? Because as I said to you guys before in the first session, in H2P, you will see within the contract management only contract compliance will be coming. Why? Because contract compliance is not a separate module. It's a bridge between upstream and downstream. So if this particular supplier is not created in downstream and you create a contract, automatically contract compliance will be coming over there. What will happen? Contract compliance will immediately give an error saying, okay, this upstream supplier does exist, but when I will move it to downstream, I am not able to find this particular supplier ID. So that is why over here, guys, everything is in process. Everything is in sync. First of all, supplier will start the request process. Then request process will be completed. You will complete the registration process. Once the registration process is completed, then all of this registered supplier will be taking part where? In your sourcing event. But remember, only the awarded supplier will be qualified, and then against them a contract will be created. Now this contract through contract compliance will move from upstream to downstream. Why? Because after you have done the qualification for those awarded supplier, the downstream supplier has also been created. Once the contract moves from upstream to downstream, what are you going to do? You are going to run a P2P against that particular contract. That means you will be creating a PR against the contract. Now, this is obviously a very oversimplification. Oversimplification, why? Because you will be saying, Manoj, this is quite complex. Now, we said this is not complex, guys. When we will go to the P2P and then we will be discussing on the integration, there you will see within downstream also there will be 3 different sub-branching going around. One will be for the local P2P process, that means local Ariba process. Another would be integrated process. Integrated process, there also there will be 2 sub-branching once again, indirect procurement, direct procurement. How it will happen? So that is the complex thing, guys. Always remember. So that is why what I'm trying to do over here is like move the complexity one step at a time so all of you can understand it. Okay. So remember, yes, I think some of you might ask me that Manoj, why you told this particular process today? I just wanted all of you to get a heads up what it is going to come, because next week at the end of the Sunday session, you should not come to me and say, Manoj, why we have done this sourcing? Why we have done this sourcing configuration? What's the difference between sourcing and SLP? Why? Because you should have a clear picture. That is why. So that is why, guys, remember, process flow is of utmost important in SAP Ariba. I do agree to ECC and SRM. It is not the only thing which is needed, but in Ariba, it is very, very important. Why? Because I have seen many consultants, many Ariba consultants, they are saying, no, after doing the registration, immediately we will do the qualification. Based on what? So you will be, confirming all the potential supplier. Then how you are going to segregate? With whom you are going to have a proper relation? Then where the catalogs will come into the picture? Why? Because catalogs is not only used for S2P, it is also used for your local P2P process. Then how you are going to differentiate between a P2P process and a S2P process? If you ask this question to most of the Ariba, consultant, they will be saying, hey, what question you are asking me? Why you are asking all this complex thing? Because most of the people don't know. And when the implementation will happen after 1 month, client will be asking these questions to those Ariba consultant. Then they will be at a loss of word. Lot of escalation will happen. So that is why, guys, process is of utmost important in SAP Ariba. If you don't know the process, forget about the configuration. Configuration, yes, that is also important. But first, you need clarity on the process. So that is why, for our trading purposes, we are doing the qualification. Now I will say, think of it like, this particular supplier has won the bid. Why? Because this particular data here for the qualification, that is a commodity code and region will come. That also we will fill up from sourcing process. But generally, we don't do it right now. We wait for the sourcing process. But since we need to complete the SLP process, what I'm going to suggest to all of you is think like this supplier has already been awarded a sourcing project. Once you have awarded the sourcing project to this supplier, then we will see the qualification over here. So remember this thing. Why? Because a lot of people don't know. They will say on the face to the client, hey, this is the qualification. Even some will come to us after the training. They will say, Manoj, you have only told. After registration, you have only shown. After registration, you're going to go with qualification. Then I will remind them that is just for the sake of showing in the system. But I have told all of you that this is the process generally which we follow. So remember this thing, guys. Even when you're going to, see the process, it does not matter if you see the request, registration, and qualification. Why? Because you need to see the process of SLP. But in your implementation project, you should remember qualification will only happen after the sourcing project has been awarded to that particular supplier. Now, first of all, why I have told all these things? Because most people generally ask me, category means commodity code over here and region. From where it is coming, Manoj? I will just enter anything. No, you cannot just enter anything over here. You will be entering this information from your sourcing project. That is why I told you about all of this particular process over here. Why? Because you can see both the category, that means commodity, and the region is mandatory parameter in supplier qualification process. So always remember this thing, guys. So this you will be not be putting according to your wish. This you will be putting it from the sourcing project. So how you are going to choose it? Click on the browse. Click on the all commodities. Okay. Now here you can choose multiple also. It's not like, only one commodity over here or one category. Okay, you can choose multiple, but at least you have to give one. At most it can be n number. Okay, same thing for the region too. Go into the browse section and here you can say, China, Australia, okay, Southeast Asia, like this you can say over here. Why Australia is not coming? Yeah. See, you can choose multiple regions also. Now there is another important thing, that is, does this qualification require expiration? Now why it is important? Because remember this thing, guys, this is not important from the point of view of what? Point of view from the Ariba functional perspective, but this is very, very important from the perspective of what? From the business. Why? Because in some businesses, when you will go, they will say, Manoj, we want to do the supplier qualification for the whole lifetime. Very good. But some clients will say, Manoj, I don't like to give a, get out of jail card free for lifetime. Let's say you are having a business. Okay. Are you willing to give a, what you can say, free deal or free offer to somebody throughout their life? No. For a particular time, you can give it. It makes sense. Okay. So similarly, some companies will say that, Manoj, I will do the qualification for all of my supplier for 1 year. Very good. After 1 year, what will happen? The qualification will get lapsed. Very good. What next? So after some cool off days, like 10 to 15 days, I will once again start the requalification from the same supplier. And that will also be for a term of 1 year. That means you are checking the qualification of the supplier after every 1 year, so that if the supplier is not giving you proper service, it's not responding to you, or they are delaying their delivery and all those stuff, you can disqualify them. Why? Generally, most of the companies will follow this particular thing because this is an automated thing. Does it mean that you cannot manually disqualify them? No, you can manually disqualify the supplier once anytime, but then again, that is a manual process. Manual process, yeah, it will always be there, but generally we try to avoid it. Only in exceptional circumstances we will use it. Same thing over here. Okay, so if you say no, that means what? That means for the whole lifetime of the supplier, this qualification is valid. Okay, and another scenario, guys, let's say today I am a supplier and I am supplying notebook in India region. Tomorrow I also start delivering the mouse. I will say to my to my purchasing organization, or basically the buying organization, that hey guys, if you want mouse from me along with the laptop, I will be able to give you. So then what will happen? I am giving laptop and laptop as commodity code or category and region as India. But right now there is another combination which came into the factor, that is category as or commodity code as mouse and region is also as India. So how you're going to do it? That can also be done through this requalification purposes. So only thing is like, let's say after 2 years, I will say, hey, this mouse business is not so benefited over there. What I will do? I will ask the buying organization, hey, I am not going to deliver mouse, but laptop is profitable for me. I will only deliver laptop. So what will happen? Buying organization will tell in the system that for this particular supplier, remove the combination of mouse in India. Only keep the notebook and India combination. So all of these particular options, generally you can do it manually. It will be a long time taking process. But if you select this option as yes, you can change it like anything over here. Okay. So what you need to do is like, you need to click on yes. And once you click on yes, system will ask for 2 dates over here. 2 dates, guys. One is the qualification expiration. So you can say 1 year. That means 29 June 2020. Okay. And generally we always give a cool off period. Cool off period means like 10 to 15 days, something like this. Okay. So on 15th July 2020, I am keeping a requalification. So that means this qualification, I'm doing this for the supplier. It will be effective till 29th June 2020. After that, it will get lapse. 15 days cool off period, 15 or 17 days cool off period. After that, again on 15th July 2020, requalification will be automatically triggered based on this date. Okay, so that is how the process will run. Okay, and once you have seen this thing, you have to click on next. And in the next same screen as that of supplier registration process, it will come over here. Okay, you have to select the questionnaire. You can see over here, it is coming in the questionnaires. But next, recipient is also automatically coming over here. Okay, so what you are going to do, you are going to click on send qualification. Okay, so this has been triggered right now. You can see it is in progress. Okay, so what will happen? How the supplier will know that the process has been started? A mail like this will be triggered. Qualification questionnaire to become qualified with this particular thing. That means a qualification questionnaire has been selected, has been sent to your account. Supplier will receive a mail like this. Okay, so where will the supplier go? Supplier will go over here. Okay, just a moment. Click on just this thing. Let me just click on this one. This particular user ID is there. Let me click on this one. No, not this one. Sorry. Go to Ariba network. Okay. Okay, now you can see, forget about the registration questionnaire. In qualification questionnaire, okay, from the supplier login, you can see this particular login over here. Guys, are you not able to hear my voice? Yeah, thanks for the confirmation. I think Amarav, can you just check it right now? So basically on this particular part, guys, like, you will be seeing the qualification questionnaires over here. What will happen in the qualification questionnaire? As a supplier login, you will see this qualification questionnaire and you will click on this particular questionnaire. Okay, so once you click on this particular questionnaire is seen, you will be filling up each of this particular qualification questionnaire. Now the question is, you should all be asking me, Manoj, what we generally put this information or particular, we put the questions in our qualification questionnaire. Generally the questions which we put is different from supply eligibility criteria over here, guys. So remember, this particular criteria which we use to measure up all the supplier, it is in accordance with that of a supplier, full-fledged supplier versus potential supplier. That's the main difference over here. Previously it was for potential supplier and this is for full-fledged supplier. So always remember this thing, that when I'm talking about this particular thing in qualification will always happen at what? At the full-fledged supply level. So here you will be asking generally, are you able to deliver all these particular products in across all the locations of Europe like this? Okay, what is your terms of payment? All this type of question. Why? Because this will be related more on how you're going to take the relationship up with the supplier. That means the understanding, like the payment, when it will happen, okay, and how delivery things will happen, where it is will happening over there. All of these things he will be capturing over here, nothing else apart from it. Okay, so as per the information, what I will do is like, I will filling up the questionnaires over here. So let me just fill up this questionnaire. Yes. And I will click on submit enter response. Click on OK. Okay, so your response has been submitted. That means we are getting a success message over here saying that our response, that means our questionnaire, qualification questionnaire has been filled up. So now our work as a supplier has been done. So what I will do, once again, I will go into the qualification tab now as a buyer. Okay, now as a buyer. So here what I will do, I will click on view. Now once you are within the qualification questionnaire, you can see there is only one approval. Approve or deny. Why there is no other task? Can any of you guys take a guess why it is like this? Why there is no manual task or other things which is involved over here, guys? So basically, no, not on user role, guys. Actually, this is based on the process. So in a supplier qualification, generally, what we put, what we use over here. Generally, here, the manager who will be approving all those things, they have to be extra careful. They cannot say, I have too much work, so I will do very less work over here. No. Why? Because see, registration is a separate thing. You can put a different end user and you can check this data. But here, the data which will be coming over here, this data is, to some extent, you can say confidential, very confidential data. That means generally most of the clients, they generally don't want this particular information to be flowing to the junior guys. So this particular information should only be shown to the senior guys, not to the junior guys. So that is why, guys, over here, who will be the approver, they have to take all the responsibility, check out each and every field, then they have to decide. Okay, here junior, junior buyers and other stuff or other people will not be coming directly in the approval process. That is why there is no non-approval task over here. So here you will click on approve or deny. And once you click on approve or deny over here, you can see all the questionnaires answers which have been filled by the supplier is appearing over here properly. And what you will do, you will approve it over here, saying qualification is approved. And you can click on approve. Okay. Now, if you go back to the supplier 360-degree profile, you will see that go to the qualification tab, obviously. Here, if you see the supplier AMC new over here, you will see the qualification status is coming as what? As qualified. So after half an hour or 45 minutes from now on, what will happen? This particular supplier will also be created in your downstream automatically. You don't have to do anything. So that is generally the process which we take care of over here. So this is how generally the qualification runs over here, guys. So always keep this thing in mind. Okay. Yeah. So this is the SLP process, only 3 processes over here. But remember, qualification process the most complex, even though it looks like very easy, actually it is not directly to be done after the supplier registration process, but in between some processes will come. So that is why it is a little bit complex project over here. So Iraj, I think we can have a question answer session over here.
Yes, Manoj, we can have it. So guys, please raise your hands, those who are having queries, so that it will be easier for me to point it out. Yeah, Amal. Yeah, Amal, you can go ahead.
Yeah, hi. So,
yeah,
a couple of questions. The first question regarding the categories.
Yeah.
So the list of categories which you have mentioned, is it the standard categories from Ariba or is it like our custom categories?
So first of all, as I said over here, Amal, like category generally means commodity code. So I generally refer to them as commodity codes. You can say like that, commodity code. So remember about commodity codes in Ariba. Ariba only recognizes UN SPSC commodity code. It cannot recognize any custom commodity code. So as of local Ariba process, we will only use UN SPSC commodity code. And that from where we will download it from the UN SPSC website.
Okay. Okay. Then the next thing is, regarding the validity. So let's say my client is providing this registration as a service for, let's say, 1 year of period. And there is a payment involved. So can we set some validity expiry date, and can we integrate a payment portal or something to control the validity?
Okay. So I think you are talking about the registration fee kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So basically remember this thing, Amal. Yes, you can do it, but then again, this cannot be functionally be done. This cannot be done through configuration. So here enhancement has to be involved. That means like enhancement request, basically customization. So there what you will do is like, let's say you will be going to the big banks like Standard Chartered or some other banks over there, HSBC. So they will be providing you some link and user ID password. So this particular thing, you have to ask SAP Ariba over there that, see, this is my supplier registration process. And within the supplier registration process, what I want is like, you can go into the template and there you can click on a, you can make a link appear. But
yeah, exactly. We will set a URL with parameters.
Yeah, but those things we can make the URL appear over there. But what will happen after the user click on the URL? There, Ariba people will do all the coding. Why? Because that cannot be configured by us. To do is like within the templates, you can say, you will be creating a link saying, pay tender registration fee, or pay registration fee over there. Once you click on that, so there Ariba will be writing the code with all these parameters and all those stuff. So yes, you can do that, but remember, this has to be done through the help of enhancement request.
All right. And yeah, one thing is, if let's say one supplier, he's registered in Ariba network, and he might be dealing with multiple companies.
Yeah.
So let's say if there is any remarks regarding this supplier from any one of the company, so can I see those remarks, those global remarks?
No. Remember, it is never global. Amal, here it will never be a global thing. Why? Because those are buyer and supplier specific things. So let's say you have implemented Accenture in Ariba. Now you are implementing for Infosys. Same supplier is present in Accenture Ariba system as well as Infosys Ariba system. Now, if Accenture is passing some information to the buyer saying, hey, I am deregistering you or disqualifying you, this information will stay between the supplier and Accenture. Infosys will never know about it.
Okay. And one last question, which is, the supplier dashboard. Supplier dashboard, there are multiple requests. Say, let's say multiple qualification forms are there. So can they see from which Ariba, let's say which Ariba system?
I totally understood your system. So here, let's say the supplier is working with Accenture as well as Infosys. So here Accenture name will come. So once they click on this thing, Accenture specific
documents will
be coming over here, and here the next step will be coming for Infosys. Once they click on the Infosys related thing, so all the transactions related to Infosys will be shown, and it will be separate.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other queries, Aman?
No, thank you very much.
Yeah, welcome all.
Yeah, thank you. So I think I start from the descending order. So more better. Yeah, Tanmay, you can unmute yourself and ask the.
Yeah. So hi, Manoj. So I'm not sure if the question my question was, as you said during the first registration process, the questionnaire set which appears in a best method, like the standard method, which we can select from. And when we send send the questionnaire for requalification, they're different. So where do we configure this, or can we add some custom questions? Or
these things generally are there in the template. In the template configuration, you can see that. So basically, don't think about this thing. Why? Because next Saturday we are going to see the template configuration only. So there I will be showing you how to add a questions, how to change all the other parameters, all of those stuff.
Okay, so that covers whether how you define which questions appear in registration and which questions appear in requalification, right?
Yeah, all of those things will be coming.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and remember, guys, one thing is like even though I will say template is different for different transactions, but 90% of the template, like which question will come where, is same across sourcing, contract, SLP, everywhere. So if you have worked in one of the template configuration, 85 to 90% of the process will be similar over there. Only thing is like extra thing will appear in the sourcing. Why? Because in the sourcing, what will happen is like there will be some sourcing and bidding rules. Those things will appear extra. Those things will not be there in the contract, neither in the SLP. But apart from that, 85 to 90% of the template will be similar. So generally what we do is like in our first template configuration session, we show the basic things. Once we see the basic things, next template configuration, when we will go over there, we will see the advanced things over there. Why? Because if I show the same thing twice, what will happen is like you will, all of you participants will be thinking, hey, what is the value addition? So generally, first template session is always a basic one. The second template session is always the advanced one.
Okay, thank you, Manoj. Saurabh?
Yeah.
Saurabh, could you please unmute yourself?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, Saurabh, we are able to hear you.
Yeah. Hey, Manoj, the question to you is basically, so we initially saw that during the registration process, right? So we have a supplier legal name, correct?
Yeah.
So now say, while creating a supplier registration form, buyer, okay?
Yeah.
If they fill in the information, let's take an example for Apple, right?
Yeah.
So if user logs in, the legal name details has Apple, while when it comes to the supplier, what if what if the supplier changes the name to basically add the name to Apple Inc.? So will there be some kind of validation that happens over here, or is it just?
Yeah. So always remember this thing that, excuse me, that whatever the supplier is updating in Ariba network profile, that is the main thing. Why?
That's right.
Because buyer, what they're using, they're using it for the first time in the from the supplier's point of view. Second time onward, supplier will never send a mail. Supplier will directly go and they will update it where in the Ariba network only. So whatever will be updated over here, automatically that data will immediately be reflected back into Ariba spend management. Now remember, if you test this thing in development realm, it will never work. As we know that generally we will never work with production at the first stage. We first work with development, then we will go to the production. So in production, it will work properly. But in development, it will not work. Why? Because I think everybody knows why. Because development server generally what Ariba gives is of, you know, what you can say, a little bit low cost compared to the production server. So that is why those features are not available in development, but those things are available in the production realm.
Okay. So now coming back to another question over here, right? So initially, I mean, in Ariba, I mean, basically the buyer portal, do we have anything called address check? So basically, I will give the example. So when we implemented
it is there. Actually, I know why, because if you put some wrong pin ID, if you let's say you have selected New Delhi over there, generally it will have 11. Start means the pin code will start with 11. But if you give 22, generally this will be for the Mumbai areas, right?
Right.
So what will happen is like immediately Ariba will throw up an error saying you have given a wrong pin code. And let's say if you put India and then you select New York over there, there will be issue.
Yeah. So basically, the reason that question came to me is basically when you implemented back in ServiceNow here in US, right? So we had something called DUNS, Global DUNS Identification Number, right? So DUNS number or parents DUNS. So this DUNS information is unique to the address. So say Apple in Valco Parkway can have a different DUNS number, whereas Apple in our Cupertino has a different DUNS number. So that's the reason that the question came. Where like I think now I got to know that they have the address check engine. So address check.
It will be there, but only in Ariba network.
Okay. Yes.
In Ariba spend management, it will not be there. You can put India as the country, and you can put state as New York or the city as New York also.
So when you say Ariba spend management at the time of request form or a registration form?
Request form.
Request form, right?
Sorry, these things will be entered where? These things will be entered over here. This is Ariba buyer, right? So here we will enter the supplier request form, then we will use updating the address at that time. So there will be no official check. Why? Because from Ariba spend management, it will not check anything. But in Ariba network, right? When we were doing the supplier registration process, when we will log in and we were creating our profile, there we have to check all these addresses. So there, if you have given the country as India and the city as New York, it will throw up an error.
Okay, yeah, that's what I wanted to know. And okay, thank you. And another question was, say that this is my understanding. Just want to make sure that it's correct, clarified. So say one supplier has two clients. One is Apple and one is ServiceNow, right? Now, whenever so Apple, I mean, basically supplier is already onboarded on the Apple. Now, when ServiceNow send a registration form to a supplier, the same supplier, the supplier ANID, say ANID is AN1234, right? That was the same that was generated for Apple. Now, when a registration form is sent to our supplier, the same supplier from ServiceNow, the ANID 1234 remains the same for that supplier, right?
Yeah. Supplier, it does not matter.
Yes.
No. Customers generally are the clients, right?
Yeah.
They won't have the ANID.
Yes.
They will never have the ANID.
Yeah.
Supplier will have the ANID.
Yes.
So it does not matter whether you are generating this request from Ariba or from ServiceNow. Why? Because even if you're using ServiceNow, it has to be integrated with Ariba also.
Yes. So my question was basically when these two clients, okay, are trying to make a business with the same supplier, assuming, okay, if I'm working at Apple previously and when I come to ServiceNow, and if I see the same supplier, the ANID happens to be the same, correct? ANID would be 1234 only, or will the ANID change?
No. ANID will never change for a supplier.
Okay. All right. Cool. And another question here is like when you shown that registration screen, right? And there is a workflow, right?
Yeah.
If you look at the workflow, it only tells you basically, hey, the registration form has already been submitted to our supplier and it's pending, right? Is there a possibility from the user experience perspective I'm talking here, right? So is there a possibility that to show the percentage, right? So basically we weigh these questionnaires based on the percentage of the marks, right? Well, if there are 100 questions, one question equal to 1 mark, 1%. So is there a way to enhance this particular screen?
No, you don't need to enhance. You don't need to enhance it. There is an option called as in when you are creating the task and the questions over there. What will happen is like there will be a parameter called as is milestone. You have to click on this milestone. So once you click on the milestone, it depends upon how many milestone you're creating. So if you're creating 10 milestone, 5 is completed. So automatically Ariba will show you 50% of the milestone is completed.
Okay.
I mean, for this you don't need to do customization. It has to be there within the configuration templates only.
Maybe I have to see that. Maybe you can show me into the next class. But will that be real time to what supplier does? So say supplier is on the first question. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. All right. Cool. Yeah, I think maybe we have to see that maybe anytime in the next class.
So not actually not in tomorrow session. It will be there on Saturday. In Saturday, I will be showing you this particular milestone activity also over there. So it's very easy. You just have to create is milestone yes or no. If you create it on yes, then what will happen is like supplier has given this 5 questions answer, right? And they have submitted the response. So whatever things has there, means like as a percentage part, it will directly show over there that okay, 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10, like this.
Yeah, basically if today there are 100 questions, 50 questions he completes today, he saved the form. And
no, not at the saving. Remember, this thing will only get updated when you submit it. Remember, approval will only get triggered when you submit this particular form.
Exactly.
If you don't submit this form, the approval will not get triggered at all.
No, exactly. I got it. On the real-time basis, what I'm asking is today I'm a buyer and I have given the supplier 24 hours time, right, for registration to come.
Okay. So in this part, yes. In this part, you have to do a ER. In this part, you have to do a ER.
Exactly.
Why? Because
that's what I was coming.
You want to check the status before the submission of the form, whether it's a qualification form, whether it's a registration form. So yes, for this you need a ER.
And also I don't see an additional comment section there. So this possibility, right? So basically today, if they want to communicate rather than making a phone call or basically sending an email, if we can make a provision called additional comments down there, which we can interface with the supplier portal on the real-time basis. So that way they should be able to easily communicate between buyer and supplier, right? Hey, why the questions is not failed? Like that, something like that.
Yeah, definitely on this part, I will suggest don't use any other feature over there. What you need to do is like you need to enable the Ariba messaging app. But
I
the
see.
only downside of this particular thing is like
Hmm.
it will only be available once you complete the registration.
Oh, really? So yeah, it's in the real time, basically, even before registration, we don't see that, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I'm just.
after registration, after registration, what will happen is like when you work in sourcing, contracting. So there you can use the messaging app over there. A buyer can send messages to supplier, supplier can send messages to buyer. But
I see.
remember, after you have completed the registration.
Okay, maybe this will be a good feature to add on moving forward. We'll see. Okay.
Yeah. And on this part, not only this sort of, but for everybody. Once we are moving forward with the session, you will be seeing there are some limitations to Ariba also.
Okay.
Okay. So definitely I will be touching base on those things like, where the features, they should improve.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So lot of things will be there, which is needed to be improved. Why? Because Ariba is actually a very new software. Actually,
I
it
know.
got
I know.
launched
It's
in
still premature.
2011 only.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know it's still premature, and previously when experiencing this, we had to go through a lot, all these things,
Yeah.
Yeah. And one last question. This will be last question. I'll put up in the next session. One last question is like, do you have any kind of group for this batch? Because what I was thinking, like there are like more participants and more people around there for some kind of like a brainstorming session between everybody. That way it will be good learning, and more you'll get to know more from experience perspective. Well, I don't know if everybody is in sync with me, and would everybody wants to have some kind of a session between the team. So between this particular batch, if they want to have some kind of a brainstorming session.
I think Eraj also touched on this particular point. So basically a WhatsApp group will be created, but remember that group will only be created after the 50% of our, means like once the upstream has ended. Why? Because there is a reason. Why? Because if we create this particular group right now, what will happen is like, I'm not saying about you or anybody else, but what we have seen is like, participants, they generally will start with the upstream, then they will go to the integration. Okay. And next session, what will happen is like, let's say we are going to sourcing. I'm getting questions from integration. Manoj, how the master data integration is happening, how the transactional data. Then I will say, guys, wait, it will come. Well, okay, it will come, but you can answer me the question. Then what will
Diksha,
happen
once
is
again,
like,
I'm unmuting you. Sorry, Manoj. Diksha is in hurry, so she's having some query, it seems. So she wants to ask. Okay, you finish, Manoj. Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Just to update you.
Yeah. So basically the thing is like, sort of, yes, we are going to do it, but once the upstream gets completed, downstream definitely we will only tell you that you please have a brainstorming session with each other. Why? Because those things are pretty technical in nature. But generally we avoid this thing till upstream. Why? Because upstream everything, most of you would be able to learn through our sessions only. But in downstream, you will need help.
That's okay. Yeah. Thanks, Manoj. I think maybe other folks can take forward. Yeah, for the questions.
We can just.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Yes,
Thanks for
sorry guys. Like
Thanks,
this session was a bit extended one. Okay, because first and second session usually there'll be a lot of doubts. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Diksha, you can ask your query, please. Then you can.
Actually, I had not attended the introduction one, so I did not know that there is a possibility of the session being extended. So sorry.
Yeah, no issues, Diksha.
Yeah. So my question is very basic, Manoj. The thing is that when we say that a supplier needs to register on Ariba, so is it only through invitation from a buying organization, or a supplier can register anyhow as well?
Yeah. See, this particular feature is available. What we can do is like this supply request form, which the buyer is entering, we can we can integrate it with the corporate URL. So let's say accenture.com, you go over there, you click on for vendors, and there you will get that supply request form. So once they create the click on the supply request form, that particular supply request process form will automatically come. So instead of the buyer, supplier can also fill it. But remember, if you give this particular option to the supplier, yes, it can be done. And I have seen some clients, very few clients, but still they have done it. But most of the clients don't prefer it. Why? Because they will get a huge request over there. Even those vendor or supplier whom they don't want to, do business with. So what will happen is like their workload will increase. So that is why everybody wants to, minimize the value over there. So they want to understand whether there is a chance to do business with this vendor or supplier or not. If there's a chance, then we will go ahead. So that is why most of the buying organization will control this particular process through what? Through the buyer side invitation.
Okay. 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 And the other question is, I saw that there were two users which were being written. One was something like PN1 user 1 and the other was PN1 user 3. When you were initially when you had filled up the request form, it was done by PN1 user 1 and the approval was done by PN1 user 3. Am I right?
No. Actually, the thing is like, yes, Diksha, you're correct. Let me just clarify on this part. Actually, it was not PN1 user 1. From the starting only, it was PN1 user 3. So your next query would be, Manoj, that means with the same user ID, you're creating the process, you're doing the approval.
Yeah.
So basically, this is just for training purpose. But in real time scenario, what will happen is like, generally, a junior agent will be creating this request. Approver will be having different role like supplier manager, supplier request manager, supplier registration manager kind of thing. In real life, it will happen differently. But for the sake of showing this particular process flow, I have done it from the same ID.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Okay. Yeah. These are my questions. Thanks, Manoj. Thanks, Raj.
Yeah. Welcome, Diksha.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'll just log off then, and I'll go through the recording for the rest of the session. And tomorrow I'll take care of that. We can extend the time.
Yeah, definitely. Why? Because see, not only to Diksha, but for everybody, sometimes, the session will get extended. Why? Because we are the people over here. We don't only think that we are only the trainer. We also think we are one of the success factor in your career. So that is why the most of the questions which will be coming from you, I will not say, or neither Iraj will say, hey, we are not going to attend. We are here to help you out. So that is why, even if the sometimes the session is extending, but we are going to take all of your questions. So that is one of the most important feature over here, which differentiated us from our competitor.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. And sorry for the hurry and
No
from my
issues,
case.
no issues, Diksha.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Welcome.
Yeah. Thank you. Amit? Amit, you have any query?
Yeah, Raj, thanks. Hi, Manoj. One quick query. As we understand this Ariba, it's a SAP product, and mostly whenever we implement Ariba, the client must be having existing EC system, right, or SRM system.
Yeah.
So they must be having vendor master or supply master data. So out of which 90% supply may be already exist in Ariba, because those are the big suppliers and they are already in business with other clients, right? So I want to understand from you, like, what would be ideal approach in order to migrate my all existing supply from ECC to Ariba, whereas 90% already in Ariba and 10% we want to import.
So basically, Amit, I'm just going to ask you one query. So when you're saying Ariba, what does it signify? Does it signify Ariba spend management, or does it signify Ariba network?
Ariba network, because as I understand, Ariba network is for a supplier.
Exactly correct.
For buyer.
Supply, So on this part, you don't need to concentrate on too much the issue. The issue over here is like, you have to do the SLP data loads, mass data loads. Okay. The only thing is like, your supplier, when they will get a registration, the mass invite registration will be going to them, right? So they will be receiving the email. Once they receive the email, there a link for Ariba network will be there. So once they click on the network, instead of using the sign up option, they will use the login information. So 90% of the supply is going to use login button, and 10% of the suppliers who don't have their ID in Ariba network, they are going to click on sign up.
Okay, got you. But from system point of view, we can use
same thing. That is the SLP mass data load. Whatever is there, you have to follow that particular thing. From the supplier end, if the supplier is having the Ariba network account, they're going to use login. If they don't have the account, they will be using sign up. That's it. It's a thing from supplier side which they have to follow, not from our side. From our side, it will be the same thing, that is SLP mass data load.
Okay. So can you just next session, if it is possible, can you just show us how we can use mass data load just to upload 2 or 3 suppliers, if it is possible?
Amit, see, actually, what we prefer over here is like, we prefer to do this mass data load during our integration. Why? Because see, the thing is like, we have to compare not only this SLP master data load, we have to compare this thing with our normal master data integration, and then we have to see or decide over
No
here
problem.
what's the difference between both of them.
Perfectly fine. So into integration, we can touch base this point. No problem. Okay.
Yeah.
The last point is we have a direct connectivity option to update data. So I heard this thing when I was actually going through tutorial. So could you just a little bit explain what is that direct connectivity? Sorry if it is too early. You can cover this point later also if we are going to cover.
Yeah. No. See, generally we are going to cover this thing in our integration, but direct connectivity actually means what? On one hand side, you are going to have what? ECC or S4 HANA system. On the other hand side, you're going to have Ariba system, right? And in between, there is no middleware solution. So there is a direct connectivity between your ECC/S4 HANA system and Ariba system over there. So this is called as direct connectivity. And there is another connectivity which is called as mediated connectivity. So in between both of these two systems, what will happen? PI will sit. So that's the difference between direct connectivity and mediated connectivity.
Okay, got you. And last question related to that. We have few supplier like a full version supplier and fully integrated supplier. So I just want to understand what is the difference between, like, there are 3 versions of supply, in fact, light version supplier, full version supplier, and fully integrated supplier. So I just
Okay,
want to understand what is
integrated and fully enabled supplier are the same thing over there. Why? Because integrated supplier, there's no concept of integrated supplier over here. So whenever you are doing the SLP mass data load, generally what you're doing, you're bringing this ECC supplier into your Ariba realm. So by default, you're doing integration of supplier, and by default, what will happen once you complete the qualification process, they will become a full-fledged supplier. Okay, and then there is a only difference is the light supplier. Light supplier cannot be enabled through SLP. They are only downstream specific supplier which will be created in downstream, and the main differentiating factor between light enabled supplier and a fully enabled supplier is they don't have a Ariba network ID. That is the light enabled supplier. Fully enabled supplier, they will have a Ariba network ID. Why? If you ask me, because they are the very small supplier. And as you know, Ariba network, that means Ariba will charge the supplier 1% of the total value of the invoice. So they don't want to pay the money over there. So that is why they will say, I will use the light enable supplier, although I am present within your Ariba system, but in Ariba network, I will not have user ID password.
Right. And for fully integrated, actually, they do have EDI integration with their legacy system. So that's what we've been told. Like the big supplier, they don't want to manually log into Ariba network and check each and everything, since they already have their legacy supply system. So they have integrated their system with Ariba. So that's what they call integrated. So I thought that could be the one. But
No, not like that. But on this part, you don't need to think about it. Why? Because see, our role as that of a implementation partner is with our buying organization. Buying organization means what? That means client. So anything related to client and client's implementation, we are going to take care of it. But if the supplier is saying we want to integrate it with our ECC system, then your buying organization is going to say, hey, we are not responsible for you. Yes, we can create your ID, but if you want to carry out this customization activity, you have to create it on your own. So they will be taking care of all this. It's not our headache over here.
Exactly. Agree with you. Thank you so much, Manoj. Yeah, that's all my side. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Thanks,
Yeah, Eraj, can we move on to the next participant, please?
Sorry, Manoj. Yeah, I was in another call. The last question is from Satya. Yeah, Satya, can you just unmute yourself and ask the query?
Hi, Manoj.
Yeah, hello, Satya.
Yeah, so I have a question here. Is like for sourcing, what is the criteria for suppliers? It should be registered, or it should be registered and qualified both?
No, only registered.
So if let's say supplier is disqualified later on, I mean, once it is qualified and later on it is disqualified, so still it will come in sourcing.
Yeah, still it will come in sourcing over there.
Okay. Okay, fine. Next question is, let's say when we create this upstream supplier and automatically once it is qualified, it will be moved to downstream supplier. So it will be created in ECC as well, or how it will be linked to ECC?
Now the thing is like Satya, the thing is like that this particular process which I told you, this is a little bit complex. Although from my side it is not complex, for most of you it will be complex. Yes, integration, we are going to talk about that particular thing when we are going to do it. Why? Because supplier integration will again depend which integration which you are going to do, where you are going to do, where you are going to do it in SLP, or whether you're talking about light enabled supplier over there, or how these things will happen. So all of these things we are going to talk in the integration scenario. Why? Because based on your different scenario, this supplier will also be following those scenarios only.
Okay.
Okay, why? Because see, most of the participants generally ask me a question where they expect a yes or a no answer. But the thing is like, there are so many scenarios in Ariba. If I say yes, so what will happen is like, you might see some scenarios where the answer is no. So that is why I will say that guys, it depends upon the scenarios. So until unless you don't know the full scenarios, you won't be able to give an answer. So if anybody asks me, client asks me, hey, yes or no, then I will say which scenario. If you are following the local P2P process, then there will be different scenario. If you follow integrated direct procurement, there is a different scenario. If you are following integrated indirect procurement, there is a different scenario. If you are following S2P process over there, there is a different scenario. So which process you are going to follow? Yeah. Satya, you can you can go ahead with the next query over here, Satya.
And so another question, general question is like, do we have assignments as well? Like once we complete one module, then to practice, what are all things to do?
So basically, Satya, I will say over here, the assignment, you don't need it separately. Why? Because when we will go into the configuration stuff, so there I will not only show you according to the SAP standard document, it will be totally custom one. Custom one means what? That means whatever experience I have got from my Ariba projects of 7 years of careers in SAP Ariba. So I will be sharing with you, saying like this kind of requirement will come from the client, how you're going to configure this thing. Like this, I will be sharing the different options over there.
So we'll do hands-on based on that thing, right?
Exactly. Why? Because that is not actually theoretical. It's totally practical from my exposure from the last 5 projects. So as a part of your set, as a part of the methodology which we follow over here, basically what we suggest our participant is like, don't go directly into the system and practice it right now. Why? See this particular recording twice, because let's say tomorrow we will have the sourcing. After that, Monday to Friday you're having. Monday to Friday, watch this recording 2 times at least. Once everything is okay, then next week go and practice. But if it is not okay, ask me your doubts on the next Saturday Sunday sessions. We will be able to clear it out. Then you go and practice the same thing which I have shown where within the system. Then it will be helpful to you. Otherwise, what will happen is like immediately. So after today's session, if you go into SLP and just start to test out over there, you will be having a lot of questions. Why? Because it is impossible for any person, even for me, to attend a training session on a new technology and remembering everything from the session. So that is why we follow, we ask our different participants to follow this session and follow this particular methodology. This will give result, guys.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Manoj.
Yeah. Welcome, Satya. Yeah, I think Eras, there is no other participant who is having query, right?
Yeah, Manoj, we are done with the queries already. Okay.
Yeah. So let's conclude the session for today, Eras. And guys, we'll meet once again tomorrow at the same
time.
date and time.
Yes. Okay, Manoj, thank you so much and patience and for having such a nice session, Manoj. Really appreciate. So what we can do is like we'll meet up the same time tomorrow, guys. Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm ending the session, and all of you are going to get the recordings also. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you guys, and thank you, Edaj. Bye, guys.